Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Telepathic Leroy. Don't relent. It's the TLDR podcast, and it's after BlizzCon. And I'm super late, so we have very little time, but it's going to be amazing anyway, and we're going to try to do maybe like a twin episode for BlizzCon because I've been late today, but we'll just do it all.
You sound pretty hyped, Jeff.
Well, I'm excited for the episode, but I also had the most divine, humorous moment in my life happen today. I was super delayed at work. I worked like 11 hours, and I was just totally, it was like, you know, usually when you go to work and you're anticipating overtime, it's easier to do the overtime, but things just kept going wrong over and over again, and I'm a very patient person. So when things go wrong, I'm just like, I'll roll with it. Today, I mean, the only day of the week that's super critical for me time-wise is a Monday. And so everything was just like 5 o'clock rolled around. I'm like, okay, we have 5 trucks left to load. We should be able to do it if I rush really hard. I'll get this guy to work overtime, and by 6:30 we should be okay. And then 5:30, 6 o'clock rolled around, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're not anywhere near done. We still have 5 trucks. How is this possible? And 6:30 rolled around, and the guys that were staying overtime all went home, except for one guy who he always stays overtime. He doesn't even ask. He just does because he knows that it's like a total horrible thing to do by yourself. So he stayed behind, and then he loaded the one truck with the wrong clothes, and he didn't realize it. And then like an hour later, we were like, oh my gosh, where's the clothes? So then we had to search all of the trucks. We have like 21 trucks in our fleet in the Edmonton location. And so we finally found them, and so then we had to park that truck back into the dock, and then we had to switch the clothes out, and then just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And just everything that could delay me delayed me. And then, so then I started driving home, and I was like, well, I was going to go to Mucho Burrito, which is the Canadian answer to Chipotle. I've had both. I think Mucho Burrito is a little bit better, and Chipotle's had some major health problems in the past. So anyway, but I was like, well, that's really out of my way, and I really want to get home really quickly. I'll just go to the grocery store and pick up like a store-made sandwich or something like that. And so I started driving down the road. I hit like every red light, and I was like, this is ridiculous. There's only like 6 headlights or red lights between, or traffic lights, I guess, between my work and my house, just the path that I take. And I hit every single one, and like one of them, it requires a person to push the crosswalk button. It won't turn red otherwise. And as I pulled up to it, there was nobody at the intersection. No human beings, no pedestrian, nothing. And it just turned red for no reason. And I was like, what? So I was getting more and more like sarcastically frustrated as I was driving along. And then I turned the corner, and as I turned the corner, the train thing came down, and I was like, oh my god. I was just like, and then when going at like bullet speed, a 2-car train furls by, and I'm like, oh my god. And then it broke down into hysteric laughter for like 15 minutes. That's the divine humor that I saw, because I exclaimed very loudly in my car, oh my god, and then it just and I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, that was my day. It was very, very busy, and I'm like 80% convinced I won't be able to get out of bed tomorrow, because I took a record 36,000 steps today.
Ooh, good for you. Good for you.
No, don't tell me that.
What? Huh?
I wasn't trying to do it.
You're a terrible person. How dare you?
Thank you.
Overtime.
Oh, I feel better.
Oh my gosh, sounds like you had a pretty full day.
Yeah, that sort of constitutes my whole week, really.
Is this like a particularly busy time in like, do you guys have busy seasons?
We do, because what happens with statutory holidays, which are, I think in the U.S. they're called bank holidays. Anyway, the way it works with my work is every time there's a stat holiday, that takes 2 to 3 weeks of repurposed scheduling, because instead of just assuming that all businesses are closed on the stat holiday, which most are, we repurpose the routes from that day to other days around the stat day. And so basically it stretches out over 2 or 3 weeks around the stat holiday, both before and after it. But what happens up until Christmas is because we have Christmas Day, we have Boxing Day, and we have New Year's off. That's 3 days really squished together. So to spread it out, they just spread it out over like 3 months. So it's November, December, January are just a total snog of busyness. And it started now because of Remembrance Day. If Remembrance Day falls on a Saturday or a Sunday here in at this company, it just becomes an extra sick day for the employees because the way sick days work, I guess, is we get like 4 per year, and if you don't take them, you get paid out at the end of the year, and then they start accumulating again the next year. And so if the Remembrance Day is on a weekend, it's a sick day given to us. But if it's on a weekday, it's a stat day for us to take. And so today or this week, it's this year, it's a stat day. So because it's on a Monday, I think this year.
Wow. Well, so my week was nowhere near as crazy as yours. So I did manage to play some World of Warcraft Classic, managed to get my my 2 mains up to north of 25, which is a huge win for me, because I kind of split my attention between 3 or 4 different characters. So to get 2 of them north of 25, I'm pretty pumped about that. But one of the really neat things is I actually got my toes wet in retail, like I said last week I was going to do. And I gotta tell you, I'm enjoying it all over again. Previously when I was playing Classic, I would log into retail and I'd be like, oh, there's just an absolute mountain of things to do that I just don't know where to start. It's like a paralysis of analysis. Don't know where to start. Know that I'm probably not going to jump back into this for another week, at which point I'll be lost all over again. And so I just don't. I log out and then log back into Classic. Well, today I got into retail, and I actually enjoyed the hell out of it because I have direction, I have story, I have the main campaign to progress through. And I've never been particularly good at setting my own goals in the game. I really want the game to tell me what my goals are. And so at this point, it's there's fresh story for me to experience. And I'm just in there like, I was going to say like a dirty shirt, but you made fun of me for that last time. So I'm in there like apparently a pit bull on a pork chop. So there you go.
Yeah, as far as World of Warcraft is concerned, I did neglect to mention any of that. I got my hunter because I'm trying desperately to catch up to Braden, who's like level 42, I think, right now with his warlock. I was like, okay, I gotta catch up to him. So I've been playing offline mode just because I when I want to level up, I want to concentrate and just do it. And if Braden's on and he sees me on, we end up grouping, and it takes even longer to level up, etc. So I've just been super concentrating on leveling up. And last week I got the last podcast I had reported that I had leveled up my hunter like 10 points or 10 levels, and then this time I got him from 34 to 39 on Saturday, or was it Sunday? I can't remember. Anyway, I did that, and then like you said, I've been sort of dabbling in retail a little bit here and there, and not very many hours. I would say I've been putting like 80% of my time so far, or 90% of my time into Classic. But the time that I have been spending in retail, I log in and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And then boom, I do it. If I don't have time to do it, then whatever. But I, like you said, it's for some reason, maybe it's because all the content is out now, the content that I've been missing for 10 months, but it's like you log in and you're like, oh my gosh, not only are there a lot of things to do, but I know what I'm going to do, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a certain amount of reinvigoration because of what we've just seen this weekend, at least for myself, because I know a little bit about what's coming. I'm all like reinvigorated and excited to be back into the retail because I cannot wait for the next what's coming next. But we can wait to get into that.
Yeah, actually, let's actually just jump right into it. But
sure,
before we do Warcraft, I feel like we should actually touch on the games that we're less interested in, just to get them out of the way a little bit.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, let's start with StarCraft. Just get that one out of the way. Nothing huge happened for StarCraft. Another hero for the co-op is Arcturus Mengsk, which is of course the main antagonist, the mortal antagonist of the series. Let's say. It's gonna be cool, I guess, but the real, I really wanted advanced storytelling out of StarCraft, and in my opinion, well, it's not even my opinion, it's fact. Co-op doesn't give story. It's just interactive maps, essentially.
Yeah, that's too bad.
You
don't even get any kind of like character clues or anything from like his. Well, I suppose we wouldn't know because we haven't seen Arcturus Mengsk get played in the co-op. As a co-op commander yet. But you know how in Heroes of the Storm you'll get like interplay between the hero characters. They'll speak to each other. They have little, one-off vignette voice line kind of things that kind of give us a little bit of depth.
It would certainly be interesting because you can obviously cooperate with someone like, the main human dude. Raynor. Jim Raynor.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, if they played cooperative, it might have some interesting dialogue occurring between them. But otherwise, I'm not really... I'll probably get him just because I own every other co-op commander, and I have them all at 15, so... which, by the way, is the maximum level for co-op. Anyway,
okay.
The only other announcement for StarCraft 2 is they announced the DeepMind AI for versus combat, which is insane because they
and they said it is formidable.
Yeah. Oh, of course. They did that for, was it League of Legends? It was either League of Legends or Dota 2. And it crushed all the professional players, and so obviously it's going to employ its own created strategies, which may actually be completely different strategies from what every other player has ever come up with.
Right. So
that in itself is super interesting, but the fact that it's going to be an extremely difficult AI to defeat, I can see a lot of fun happening with it. As a viewer, not as a player.
One of those things where you repeatedly beat your head against the wall and fail over and over and over again.
That's right.
Yeah.
The next one that had the least amount of announcements I find was probably Reforged.
I guess so. Yeah, I think you're right. Sorry. I was gonna argue that it was Heroes of the Storm, but there's a little bit of meat in their very few announcements, so
yes.
We can go ahead and talk Reforged.
So Reforged, it's hard to talk about because it's an already existing game. What's new that's coming? There's some cinematic previews. They showed some high elf swordsman models. There's new camera tools for Map Maker. I've never ever delved in Map Makers for RTSs though, so that doesn't really mean much to me. There's team-colored health bars, which will make a huge difference. Because I only really played campaign in Warcraft 3, but the few amounts of skirmishes I've had, it's really difficult if you don't know if you're not overly familiar with all of the units in the game. It's really difficult sometimes to especially when you're Forsaken versus Forsaken. It's how are you supposed to tell what's going on?
Yeah, whichever ones highlight when you drag click, those are yours.
Yeah. So there's that. One huge thing, and this is still an availability thing for people who didn't buy their BlizzCon ticket. Anybody who bought a virtual or a physical BlizzCon ticket, it is gaining access to the beta starting Tuesday, which is of course the 12th. No, sorry, the 5th of November.
The 5th. Yes. Tomorrow, as we record this.
Yes. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm definitely going to be delve into it a little bit. But yeah, if you haven't got the BlizzCon ticket yet, you still can to gain access to all their backlogged videos and stuff, and that'll also give you the benefits of the BlizzCon ticket. I think that's really all I really have to say about Reforged.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly floored about it. I thought it was a neat concept when they announced it at last BlizzCon. I never immediately wanted to go out and play the game again. It didn't make me want to, boot up my old version of the game and give it another look. So I don't know. I don't think, to me anyways, that it's going to be worth the premium price point. So I'll probably be passing this one off.
I'll only get it because it apparently has some extra scenes and lore that might be, I don't know. It's still so far off. I'm so unsure about it still.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like you said before, the next least amount would probably be Heroes of the Storm, because I honestly thought they'd announce a second hero, but they didn't. So
yeah, I was expecting something. I mean, something more than what they gave us. Not that they were cheap or stingy on what they gave us, but what they gave us was quite a few less announcements and quite a few more. This is how we do it. Kind of a look inside of how Heroes of the Storm is made, how the characters are developed, how Deathwing was created, and the different art teams that were involved there, and it was interesting in its own right. Don't get me wrong, but it's not what I was hoping for HOTS.
It was interesting in its own right, but it's something that they've done every single year since Heroes of the Storm came out. Mm-hmm. Is every time there's like, hey, let's do this little designer panel, and I'm like, I don't care about that so much. Like, talk about the future or new maps or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I did still watch it, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. They did talk about new. Oh no, not new maps. They talked about their events, how they want to keep that rolling and come up with new ones.
Yes, their events are very good.
Yeah, it's one of the most popular things that game. Sorry, it's when they're enjoying the most success is when they have an event rolling.
Yeah,
something like their toy event at Christmas time, or their Mecha Storm event, which I believe is just around the corner. They're gonna revisit that one. I think
that one was super in depth, and it's sort of a shame that I missed it, but it had a lot of promise for like lasting a long time. Like there were so many quests attached to it that you were like, geez, like how long would this take to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess next would be Hearthstone or Overwatch.
I think definitely either one of those.
Okay, let's do Hearthstone.
I was just going to say, let's talk Hearthstone. So, kind of, let me see, just find it in my notes. Okay,
they announced Battlegrounds. Want to talk about that?
They did. I was going to start with the next expansion name.
All right, that's fine.
But, yeah. So they've announced a new expansion, Descent of Dragons. They didn't give us a card count in this expansion like they usually do. They tell you 214 new cards. They didn't say that this time, not that I saw anyhow. But it is releasing on December 10th, so that's really just around the corner. By the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be less than 30 days before the release. There's pre-purchases, and everything, of course, it follows the same model that way. But they did announce, like I pegged before, yee-haw, yay Daniel, they announced a new game mode, which they called Battlegrounds. Now, kind of was hoping for a tournament mode. I know that they were working on it at one time and that they shelved the project, maybe indefinitely, we're not sure. But Battlegrounds, I'm a little unclear on exactly how this works. So what I do know is that it's an 8-player mode. You can queue up. You queue in with no deck. You queue in with no character, like no hero. You queue yourself in, and they splash you into this place where you get to choose from either one of some, or maybe you get access to all 24. But there are 24 unique heroes to choose from in this battleground. So you won't be playing as Rexar. You won't be playing as Anduin, or as if you got Arthas, the redeemed for your paladin deck, you won't be able to queue in as any of those, to my understanding. There are 24 unique heroes that we haven't seen before. Now, instead of building a deck, you're actually going to be building a board of minions, and this is where it gets fuzzy to me. I don't know how the combat is going to work. I don't know how the actual gameplay is going to work. I know that you're going to be building a deck. You're going to be building a board full of minions instead of building a deck. I know that wins are going to grant you battleground coins. So these coins, you can't take them out of the battleground, but they're used to purchase,
minions and stuff.
Yeah. Upgrades to your minions, additional minions, influence the board with different spells and stuff like that. You can refresh your minions, or you can improve the tavern that you're playing in, and improving the tavern gives you access to bigger and better cards and minions and spells and stuff like that for your next tier in the battleground. So, interesting. Color me interested. I feel like it's going to work a little bit like the PvE system has worked in the past. It's just where every win gives you another screen splashes up, and you get to choose a new modifier to your deck, except it's going to be applied to your minions instead. So it's going to be a PvP option for that PvE content that we saw in the last few expansions. Sorry, Jeff, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
It turns me off that it's an 8-player experience. I don't like that.
Why is that?
Sounds
Few times?
It sounds extremely chaotic to me.
Oh, I don't think it's 8 players at a time, though. I think you're still facing off 1v1.
Oh. Yeah, that was misleading then. I completely got a different impression there. It says it says due to the nature of an 8-player match with tons of attacks, effects, and animations triggering at the same time, Hearthstone Battlegrounds is currently only supported on mobile devices with more than 2 gigabytes of RAM. So if it's an 8-player match, that implies to me that it's 8 people in the same match at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. You could be very, very right. I missed that part. But, wow. That changes everything. That would be chaotic, like you're saying. But I suppose it depends on how the rules work.
But also, I'm not
game
sure.
Progresses.
I didn't really watch the panel so much. I just read a bit to refresh myself on the battleground itself. But, is it a cooperative or a competitive?
I really couldn't tell you. I don't think it'll be competitive, and the reason I don't think it'll be competitive is because it sounds like the rewards you get, you don't take them out with you. It's not more coins. It's not more deck, more cards for your pre-existing decks, as far as I know.
It's just it's weird to me because obviously it could be a bit of a goofy mode, so 8 people can just do whatever they want and it'll work out anyway. But it sounds like LFR, but not easier. So it's
and can you imagine the time it would take for all of those spells to resolve every time somebody does an action?
Exactly. You would need a coordinated team, or I don't know how else you would do it where it would be efficiently timed and also fun, because people could accidentally go against you with their card combinations or whatever, right?
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to reserve judgment before I actually get a chance to get in there and get my feet wet a little bit. So,
unless it's I don't even. Sorry, I'm very confused. I thought it was.
I was going to say, color me optimistic.
I thought it was potentially like an 8. You choose 8 heroes yourself, but it's not. It's 8 player. It's not 8 hero. Yeah. It's so weird.
It's 8 players.
I don't understand, man.
So moving away from Battlegrounds, though, Hearthstone had a couple of more little nuggets to drop. So, Jefferson, tell me, in World of Warcraft lore, who is Galakrond?
He's the father of all dragons.
He is the father of all dragons, the world's most massive proto-drake. He makes Deathwing look like a little pipsqueak.
Which is very... For those of you who don't know, Deathwing was enormous. Like, part of the battle against Deathwing was fighting on his back. Like a full raid team on his back. Like, he was a giant guy.
Yeah.
Well, not 40.
40 or 25? 25. Still, pretty incredible. And he's flying around and trying to knock you off and drop you to the ground, doing like barrel rolls and stuff like that. It was kind of an interesting fight. So, getting back to Galakrond. So he is a new hero replacer card, kind of like all the Death Knight cards from Knights of the Frozen Throne, or like Jaraxxus for your Warlocks, or Ragnaros for... I think everybody has access to Ragnaros. Not Ragnaros, the minion card, Ragnaros, the... whatever, I don't remember its name, where it like sets your health to 8. Either way.
That's Major Domo.
Major Domo Executus?
Yeah. He's a minion, a legendary minion.
Yeah. Either way. So Galakrond is another replacement card for your hero. So your hero gets ousted, bye-bye Jaina, and here is Galakrond replacing your character. Now, also with Galakrond, the reason why this is important is because there is a new keyword being introduced in Hearthstone, and that keyword is Invoke. So Invoke... What?
I thought you were cueing me to say it.
Oh
my God, it's me.
Well, why don't you tell us about Invoke then?
Invoke is basically you do it.
All right, I'll see if I can do better than you. So Invoke is a way for you to modify your Galakrond. So wherever Galakrond is in your deck, if he's in your hand, if he's in your deck of unplayed cards, or maybe even if he's in your graveyard, unsure about that one, but Invoke is cards that modify your Galakrond one way or another. Now, there may be Invoke cards that draw Galakrond from your deck, so you've got him in your hand. There may be Invoke cards that, buff him one way or another so that when he hits the board, he's beefier, or has a different effect. And they're really playing into this Galakrond thing. It's going to be a pretty massive part of the Descent of Dragons expansion, which I suppose makes sense because, Galakrond being the big, massive father proto-drake that I guess birthed all the dragons? Even though he's male, I don't know how that works exactly, but either way, the progenitor of all dragons, and you get to use him. So they're really wrapping the expansion around the Descent of Dragons, around Galakrond, and I think it's about damn time. And the reason I say this is because this has been Hearthstone's year of the dragon, and up until this point, for what I was reading, because of course I haven't played much of Hearthstone in 2019, but from what I was reading, they had I think 4 or 5 dragons release in every expansion, like total, since 2019 began. So the Year of the Dragon was a little sparse on dragons, so I think they're making up for that in this expansion.
So did you explain the Invoke?
Yeah, I did as best as I could. It's a modifier for your Galakrond. So it's attached to different cards.
It's not just Galakrond, though. It's other cards as well.
Oh, do they modify your other Invoke cards?
What?
What?
What are you talking? No, like, there's one dragon, for example, that It has a battle cry that says, if you've invoked twice, reduce the cost of the cards in your hand by 1.
Well, there you go. So it does have additional effects.
Yeah, it's not just... Galakrond was the example used, but there's a whole bunch of other cards that benefit from it.
Which makes sense, because if you're trying to build a deck around Galakrond and you never draw Galakrond, well, you kind of neutered yourself.
Was Galakrond a class card?
No, Galakrond is available to all heroes.
But is there 9 different Galakrond cards, or is it all one neutral Galakrond?
That is an excellent question for someone else.
All right.
I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that.
I think it's per class, because I'm only asking because I just saw a priest card called Galakrond the Unspeakable, and then right below it said there's a warlock card called Galakrond the Wretched, and I was like, all right. And they both do different things. So, yeah.
Excellent.
But in addition to that, there is also the whatchamacallit, side quests as a new mechanic as well.
Oh, you'll have to explain that one to me. I didn't get that.
Side quests are just like those big quests that you had in the Angaro expansion. Side quests are basically a one cost spell that when you play it, it just says, "Hey, you got to do this little objective, and then you'll get this minor reward."
Okay.
So the main quest reward was a huge item that basically transformed your game. The side quests are like spend X amount of mana on spells, like 8 mana, and then the reward is like a 6/6 dragon.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. That's a neat way to kind of add a little depth and complexity to the game. Something that your opponent can't really play around, but it's something you can kind of use to, I guess, lend a little bit of weight to your turns. That's neat.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Hearthstone, and they have I think 33 cards announced so far, but who knows how many there's going to be total.
I feel like most expansions are in the 150 card range.
Yeah, there's I think I counted like 16 rows of 6 that are like grayed out that you can't look at yet. So
okay.
Something like that.
16 rows of 6 would be like 96?
It might be more. I don't know. I didn't. I'm tired. Okay.
Plus those 30?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to really bring me back into Hearthstone full throttle. I've always liked Hearthstone as a campaign experience. Some of their campaigns are very replayable, so it's just something that I like to dip into sometimes, and not others, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So before we move on, I just wanted to mention that for the Heroes of the Storm game, Deathwing is free to anyone with a ticket as well. So that's a secondary benefit so far for owning the BlizzCon ticket, and I'm really excited then because Deathwing looks amazing. So. Yeah.
Doesn't he? He just looks fantastic. And I'm one of those nerds that watched the art team wax poetic over Deathwing's creation, and I thought it was just amazing. I'm like, these guys, man, they're doing something that I could never, ever do. It's like when you watch a fantastic musician or an incredible painter, and you're just like, wow, this guy, he is so good.
Or those people who make like a 6,000 tile domino set,
or a 40-foot tall card castle.
I think we've lost our way.
I'm just saying, these guys are every bit the talented artists that we praise, in analog arts.
Oh, do you know what I did too? I shaved yesterday, and I cut right at the base of my left nostril, and it's super sensitive. Every time I smile, it's like, ching! I'm like, ow! So, yeah.
Really worth derailing the podcast for that. But while we're on the topic, I stopped shaving like a week and a half ago, and I'm growing my winter woolies out.
Oh, I would have to get like a 6-year head start.
We had one guy from work who he's also a farmer. He took a couple of days off because we had some nice weather break here, and he was able to get in the field and pull some of his barley out. And he took 3 days off to go and harvest his barley. And he comes back to the office today, and he takes a double take at me. He's like, "Holy, is it Movember?" I'm like, no, it's real. But
I thought for Movember you're supposed to. Is it just grow as much as you can?
I think it's a mustache is what your Movember is supposed to be, but not everybody strictly adheres to that.
Because on Friday there were like 3 guys at work that came in that always have a huge thick beard, and all 3 of them came in completely clean shaven, and I was like, huh?
Oh.
So maybe they were starting anew for Movember? I don't know.
I guess so. No shave November. I've also heard Decembeard. I don't know. That's maybe the guys that that do Movember just get wrapped up in it. Yeah, I am possessing of the French genes that grow facial hair amazingly well and quickly. So yeah, it's interesting.
You're like those Middle Eastern guys who can like grow it out in like a day. Like,
now it's at this point where the hair is turning back on itself and stabbing me in the face, so it's really uncomfortable to sleep on my pillow.
But it's worth it.
Oh, let's move on.
Yeah. So Overwatch. I'm not gonna lie. Of everything, even StarCraft included, this is like the least involved game for me. So I know the characters. I don't know the story. I don't know anything other than what they announced at BlizzCon.
Yeah. Well, so I listened to a podcast called Blizzard Watch, and they kind of watch all of the Blizzard games. So I got a little bit. I get a little bit of Overwatch stuff kind of spoon-fed to me, every now and then. So I think I know a little bit about the game. I won't pretend to be that incredible, or to know that much about it. One of these times, we should get our friend Travis Gagno on here to talk Overwatch, because he's been playing that game for 5 years now. And
you just said his full name. If people cared, he got DDoSed.
Okay.
No, is that what's called? Doxed? What's it called when you say somebody's name online? I think it's doxed.
Swatted.
No, it's doxed.
What's that?
It's when you search for and publish private information about somebody on the internet, typically with malicious intent.
Oh.
DOX, man.
Okay. Well, if that happens to you, Travis, my apologies. You can, you know where to find me.
Yes, Travis definitely knows where to find Daniel. So,
kind of first impressions watching the cinematic. What did you think?
I was confused throughout, just because I like I said, I don't really know the story that well. So when May and Winston were like really like buddy, I was like, what? Because I thought, based on the events of Overwatch 1, I thought none of them were really that close friends. So literally, that's how little story I know with this game. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess some of them are friends, but they're okay with trying to kill each other sometimes. It's weird. Trying to build a story around a competitive game is weird.
It's interesting, but it's the same thing like in Heroes, where the characters say little like one-off lines to one another that kind of give you a backstory, and it's little things that without any context might mean nothing. So it's neat anyways for the community to be postulating, and I think that's one of the things that's contributed so much to the creation of Overwatch 2, is that the community has been clamoring after this story mode forever. Now, before we get into that part though, personally I found the cinematic was pretty incredible. By that I don't mean that the graphics were fantastic, because it's quite cartoony, as Blizzard likes to do. So the graphics weren't an incredibly high fidelity kind of thing.
I would say, as far as cartoony graphics go, it was phenomenal. Like it by no means was it unimpressive. But it followed the Diablo cinematic, which looked like real life. So
yeah. So I guess I'm comparing it with like when World of Warcraft does a fully rendered cinematic.
Yeah.
It might be unfair to compare one to the other because
it's completely different art styles.
Different style. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, you've won me over. It was really good. I did appreciate. I really appreciated the general. I don't want to say mythos. It's not like the air of each character. Like Winston, he's got this kind of deep intellect that that informs everything he does. May is obviously a pretty conflicted character. She's not super sure of herself. A little bit nervous. She appears to be quite young. I don't know how young she's supposed to be, but she appears to be like 13 or 15 in that kind of age group.
Is it just because she's seems innocent to you? Is that why she seems young?
Innocence. She's really small. It's not just innocence; it's hesitance. Really hesitant to make a move, to do things. Always looking to Winston for confirmation. Like, is this what's happening? I thought they did amazing with Tracer. Tracer was really good in that cinematic as well. But I think the biggest thing that knocked my socks off is when that huge transformer come around the corner and like blasted that cataclysmic death beam at them out of his chest.
Okay.
I thought that was really, really cool. And, just the fact that they're, so I guess we'll roll right into it here. What they're doing with Overwatch 2, and it was the implications of this robot here that got me so enthused. What they're doing with Overwatch 2 is less a successor to Overwatch 1. It's not like it should be an expansion, in my opinion. What they're doing is like a super expansion. It should be just part of the game. And I think in a lot of ways it is, but I think it was made in a different engine. Big question mark here. I'm not sure for sure.
Oh yeah, I think it was definitely. I think they actually implicitly announced that in the opening ceremony.
Okay, so there you go. So new engine. So they obviously can't make the games, or maybe it just made a lot more sense for them to just port everything over. But like your cosmetics and stuff from that you've earned in Overwatch 1, the original, are able to be ported over to Overwatch 2. You're able to queue for PvP cross games, so Overwatch 1 can PvP with Overwatch 2 players. So there's all kinds of really cool stuff. A new hero, one of them was announced, Sojourn, but there's a whole slew of other heroes that we don't know about. New maps, we've got four new maps. Toronto, Rio de Janeiro, Gothenburg, and Monte Carlo.
That's right.
The Toronto, what?
That's right.
Oh, okay. The Toronto one is, I believe, the first Canadian map. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right on. Now, when they showed us the Toronto map, I don't know, it was weird. I was slightly offended for stupid reasons. For very stupid reasons. There was, it was one of those ultra tropey things, and I was like, do we really have to? Like, I'm Canadian. Do we have to play on the Canadian tropes? Like the maple leaves, the maple trees. That was a neat touch. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
The
hockey rink,
the hockey statue, not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there's anywhere in Canada where there's a hockey player, just sitting out there on a statue.
I think it's because there's like so few landmarks in Canada that they just have to shove in fake ones.
Isn't the CN Tower in Toronto?
Well, it's just a skyscraper.
Yeah. So I mean, it could have been a little less tropey in my opinion.
But I completely agree. It was totally overboard. I don't hate it, but it was overboard.
It's a little much, eh?
I hope there aren't like random civilians going around. Hey, there, hoser.
I'm sure there are. Want to get some poutine, eh?
Yeah, like in the starting area before the game starts. Some random guy talking to you. Ugh.
All right. So, neat thing about Toronto, it is one of the new game modes. The Toronto map is one of the new push game modes where you've got this big kind of.
It was exactly how I called it.
Robot.
Too.
Did you?
Yeah, it's like tug a rope, but you push.
Interesting. I feel like. But
and
this was all
that
leaked,
came out of your butt, and I was like, no, you pushed it out of your butt, right? No, it's a robot that pushes a wall.
Yeah.
If that wall was a rope, my analogy would be perfect.
It's basically an escort quest, right? You gotta, kind of like a payload, you gotta escort it from one end to the other, except instead of a defending and attacking team, you're both on defense if it's, past the midway point, or either of you are on offense.
I didn't watch any videos for it because again, Overwatch I'm so disinterested in, I guess. But the video they showed at the beginning sort of it implied to me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it implied to me that the robot pushes as long as there's allies around. The robot will push the wall, and then if all the allies get out of range or something, then the wall stays stationary, but the robot sort of gets confused and walks backward.
Correct. Yeah, at the beginning, there's two walls. There's a red and a blue wall right from starting point A, and then the end point B is at either end of the map. And so, if you're able to control the robot, he'll push the wall toward your enemy's. I guess it would be your finish point, deep in the enemy's side of the map.
Right.
And I imagine your spawn point is around there as well, so that like your enemy's spawn point would be around that kind of cap pad, so that as you get closer and closer and closer to the cap, it gets hairier. Yeah. That's what what I'm building in my own head. But
I will say though that the introduction of the story, which we all saw coming, but what's really nice about it is there's a huge barrier, for me at least, there's a huge barrier to entry for the competitive mode. I've played competitive, and it's like playing Tracer for the first time. There is a practice mode, it's kind of lame. So the first time I played Tracer, I just hopped into a game and started playing Tracer, and it was like super confusing. I was like, how do I teleport? Oh my god! And I was just like, my guns suck! And it was just like, I didn't like any of it. And everybody else was way better than me. And I was like, jeez, because of course I didn't start playing right away as soon as the game came out. I waited a while. I think I had beta, but I didn't really do much with it. And yeah, so I like I said, that barrier to entry. But with campaign mode, hopefully you'd be able to play all of the different heroes throughout the campaign. And
build up your skills.
Yeah, sure. Get confident.
Absolutely. Now, you kind of just catapulted right into it. The big reveal for this Overwatch 2, the big take-home for a lot of people, is the fact that there's story and hero missions. Now, we talked about that in the kind of predictions last episode, but it was kind of unfair because it was leaked to us already, so it wasn't really a very
to be fair
prediction.
When I saw the leak, all I saw was the emblem, the Overwatch 2 emblem. I didn't see anything else. I refused to spoil myself on anything. Like I avoided internet for like a week.
Yeah, I don't care about Overwatch leaks, so I was like, whatever. But yeah, so apparently there is kind of a massive following. Well, and I think we talked about this last time. All of the cinematics that the story beat cinematics that the Overwatch team produces get like millions of hits in just hours, because there is a ravenous appetite for the story mode. And Blizzard, listen, man, here it is. So if anybody is interested in picking the game up but don't really like the pressure of like ranking and PvP and laddering and MMR and all that stuff, letting people down, here is kind of your way in, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, and here's a way I think for them to keep the game alive as well, without killing the Overwatch League, which is Blizzard's largest esport question mark. I think it is their largest esport at this moment.
Oh yeah, I remember at the opening ceremony they announced all the different esports that are like huge for Blizzard, and
Yep.
for some reason the World of Warcraft arena got a huge applause, and I was like, "Why are you kidding me? That is so boring to watch."
Is this a thing? Yeah.
I don't play Overwatch, and it's really entertaining for me to watch. I don't play StarCraft competitively, and it's really fun for me to watch. I don't play Hearthstone competitively, and it's really fun to watch. I play a lot of World of Warcraft, and that arena is so boring to watch.
I find Overwatch is too chaotic for me to watch. Maybe because I just don't don't understand what's happening quite so much, because I've never really played the game. So I think there's too much happening that my brain doesn't comprehend. So I just find it too busy, too much happening.
Right.
Yeah. So Overwatch, yeah, it looks interesting. I'm in, man.
I pre-purchased the first game, and I regretted it, but I didn't ask for a refund or anything. I was just like, yeah, whatever. At the time, I think it was $40 for release, and I thought, okay, that's acceptable. And I thought I would like it more than I did, and I didn't. But whatever. C'est la vie, as they say. So
that's true.
Yeah, but off of that, I'm not going to pre-purchase Overwatch 2. I'm going to wait for it to come out and then feel it out, basically. And I don't know the price point either, so.
Yeah,
so
they didn't give us a release date, did they?
No, I don't think it would be realistic either. So I think we should touch on Diablo 4 next.
Touch on? You're just gonna gently touch it, or are you gonna like caress it and stroke it soothingly and tenderly? And well, I'm trying to be visual here with your your adoration for the franchise.
Diablo is the kind of game that it's really, for me at least, it's the kind of game that they can show me all this stuff that they did at BlizzCon, and I can be like, yay, but I'm not even trepidatious. I'm not hyped. I'm just like, give it to me. When I start playing it, I'll be hype. I will be like calling in sick at work and stuff, hyped. But the build up, it happened with Diablo 3 as well. The build up to it, I'm like, I don't care that much until it comes out, and then I go ham, essentially.
What did that 10-minute cinematic do for you?
It was obviously phenomenally crafted and produced, and just, oh my gosh, that monk guy. That for some reason the guy with the eye patch looked computer league generated to me, but the monk dude looked real. He looked like a real human being walking around, and I was like,
he was pretty great.
I was like, holy crap, how did they do that? But
the guy with the eye patch was totally Beric Dondarrion.
I know. He looked exactly like him.
I know.
And a lot of people thought that the black monk guy was Tyrael, but it clearly wasn't. I think they were just saying, hey, one black dude is another black dude, because there was otherwise no similarity between the two characters. But
right. Isn't Tyrael an angel?
You're half right.
How could he be? How could he be? You're going to need to explain that to me.
In the story of Diablo 3, he disagrees with one of the angels in heaven, and then all the other angels sort of gang up on him, and he's like, well, you know what, I think he's the angel of justice? I can't remember offhand. Let me look it up, because this is actually a really important point. Tyrael, angel of... Yeah, he's the angel of justice. Wait a second. Yes. So each angel in the Diablo mythos is an angel of something. Like Malthael is the angel of death. He was the angel of life, I believe, but he became the angel of death because, of course, he became a villain. But then, what's the other angel's name? Is it Arcturus? No, it's Art.
I almost said Artanis.
Arcturus is, of course, Arcturus Minsk. It's Imperius.
Yeah, there you go.
Imperius is the angel of valor. So he has this really, like, very snobby, pretentious way of him, like air of him, around him. And so basically he really looked down on Tyrael for sympathizing with the humans. And Tyrael said, "How dare you judge me when I'm justice itself?" And he said, "How dare any of you judge me?" And then to spite them, he tore off his own wings and then plummeted to the earth as a human.
A little dramatic.
Oh, it's an awesome scene, man. It's several years old now, but it is such an epic sequence. Oh my gosh, I might
have to watch the gameplay movie. You know, people make movies out of the gameplay, just so I can get all of the story beats from Diablo 1, 2, 3. And
1 and 2 is pretty complex. 1 is pretty simple, but 3 definitely has a lot of big things that happen in it. But the cinematics in heaven with the angels are phenomenal.
Well, and I mean, if they make they probably won't make it for this, like Diablo 3 probably won't make it for the Stadia, but if they make Diablo 4 for the Stadia, I will probably buy it.
Stupid Stadia.
Hey man, that's the way of the future.
But yeah, so Tyrael, obviously everybody knows Tyrael from Diablo 2, and he was a huge ally to the hero and stuff. I don't know how he got on the Tyrael topic.
Because you said the black skin guy looked like
that's
like
right.
Tyrael.
That's right. Yeah. Throughout all of Warcraft, at the beginning, not Diablo. At the beginning of Diablo 3, Tyrael is just this guy with amnesia, and then as you go throughout the game with him, he realizes who he is, and he's like, oh my gosh, oh yeah. And then I think at the end of Act 3, I believe, his memory returns, and it shows that epic cinematic of him tearing off his own wings, and then and then he becomes Tyrael the human, essentially. I'm not sure if he's technically human, but he is definitely like human form.
Right. And is he diminutive? Like, so this character that we're referencing was quite small and, slender, maybe even sickly. He had been wounded somehow, so he was like clutching his guts so that he didn't bleed out. There's a lot of questions. I don't know if we'll ever learn the story of these 4 quote unquote grave robbers, because they're in that tomb or catacomb looking for treasure, right?
Yeah. I don't think any of them are important. They're just important for telling the story of accidentally summoning the antagonist.
I'm thinking you're right. And Jeff, go ahead, drop that truth bomb on us. Who is the antagonist?
The antagonist is Lilith, who is daughter of Mephisto. Mephisto is one of the prime evils of Diablo. Diablo is a prime evil, Mephisto is a prime evil, and who is the other one? Baal is a prime evil. I'm thinking there's a fourth one, but it's been so long since I've refreshed myself on Diablo story that I do apologize if I'm missing a few beats here and there. But in that cinematic, Lilith, I thought they were going to show her completely naked. I mean, she was technically naked, but I thought she was going to be like a woman body. But that weird demonic form that she had with that weird translucent body, that was crazy sinister.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I don't see why the demons would need sex organs when they don't reproduce that way. So I was okay with it. I was like, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, there have been other demons, especially in Diablo 2, that have definitely had breasts. The crappy graphics of Diablo 2, but they had breasts.
So was this a birth or was this a rebirth?
I thought it was just a summoning.
Oh, there's something very birthing about it when you see her face kind of tearing through the veil.
That
it
membrane?
It has no horns on it of any capacity. The hands, when you get the first look at the hands and feet, they're, I'm not going to say underformed, but the skin is extremely transparent, right? You can see all of like the blood vessels and everything inside, which of course it doesn't get fully covered up as she develops, but there is a very definite sense of something developing there. And it just felt a lot like a birthing, baby coming out of the inner placental sac or whatever. This is getting really graphic, but you know what I mean? Like it felt like you described it as a membrane, and that's perfect, because it was like she was tearing out of this membrane that she'd been developing in.
Well, you've obviously seen Mephisto from Here's the Storm.
Yes.
But he is like Here's the Storm really, really PG's him. He's a horrifying looking dude. So the fact that Lilith, who I don't know how Mephisto even reproduces, but given that Lilith is his daughter, I would say that she might just look like that. I'm not sure if she's technically going to form further, like thickened skinned kind of thing, like become like a more adjusted entity.
And she might, when a calf, like a baby cow calf, or even like a whatever, pick your poison, that has antlers or horns, when they're born, they don't have them, right? And that was kind of the impression I got when Lilith's face was pressing against that membrane. It was obviously a bald head. There was, and when you see her end shot, it is like,
oh yeah,
terrifying. Those horns are 3 times the size of her head. They're enormous,
and she has like 7 of them.
Weren't there. yeah. Very intimidating. I peed myself a little, but they obviously weren't there when she was kind of tearing through that membrane in the first place. So that to me felt a lot like a birth.
I mean, also that membrane that formed like a giant cowl around, like behind her.
Yeah. Like a cloak.
I thought at first it was wings, and then I was like, oh, is it a cloak? Or is it... And it's disgusting looking.
It's just blood.
It's just, it's super duper gross. But, it's... They really took a hard right from Diablo 3, because Diablo 2 was gritty and dark, but it wasn't like... Because they didn't have the technology to really show the awesome... like gore and stuff that was also present in the game. When Diablo 3 came out, they obviously, instead of having the cow level with all these cows, the cow level in Diablo 2 was goofy in its setting, because it was cows walking around on their hind feet with weapons in huge hordes, and it was just really goofy and stupid. But then they made it even more goofy and stupid in Diablo 3 with the rainbow, or the unicorn level with rainbows and like talking clouds and stuff, and it was really jarring. It was too far. It wasn't funny to me. It wasn't fun. It was just this weird disconnect from Diablo. But Diablo 3 itself is also a much more bright and warm game. It's obviously slash gore fest, but it's like in its atmosphere, it's got warm colors and warm light to it, and it's not at all what you want from Diablo. So Diablo 4, this scene, especially the initial scene with Lilith, or not the initial scene, but as it zooms out from her, it zooms in on her face and then it zooms out and shows her whole entity, her whole person, and that is such a horrifying. It looks like a horror movie character. It's such a horrifying entity that you're like, oh my gosh, like it's really dark now.
Yeah, it's freaky, and that you got to give props to that art team. Holy, when they showed Lilith's like developed face in the first place, you would swear that was an oil painting. Just the way it was done, the art, the way it was done, you'd swear that that's an oil painting until the eyes move and her head kind of tilts as she, notices that priest or whatever he is, and kind of like glances down at him and stuff like that. Then you can see, it's animated, but holy smokes, is it very well done.
Oh, yeah.
They nailed it, knocked it out of the park. But do we want to maybe progress beyond the cinematic a little bit and just kind of go into what we know about the game?
Oh, yeah, sure. They're talking 5 classes to be released with the game, but they only announced the Sorceress, the Barbarian, and the Druid so far. The Barbarian, of course, is a core character that's existed across all 4 games. Actually, in the first game, I'm not sure if it was specifically a Barbarian or if it was just like a warrior or something like that. Which the first game only had like a mage, a warrior, and a rogue. Like there was, it was very, very basic. But Diablo 2 had the Sorceress and the Druid. The Druid was an expansion class. There was the Druid and the Demon Hunter, I want to say. What was that class called? Anyway,
I thought the Demon Hunter was exclusive to Warcraft 3.
No, definitely not.
Or not Warcraft, Diablo 3.
Sorry, I hate looking things up mid-podcast. That this is.
Don't worry about it. It's inconsequential.
Yeah. So, it was the assassin. Sorry. I don't know why I thought it was a demon hunter, but yeah, she it's like a brawler, lays traps and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say the Druid I am super excited for, just because I remember. Actually, before I delve into the classes themselves, one really cool thing about Diablo 4 that I have to back up even further. One thing that I would say Blizzard has done really well for this BlizzCon is they've listened to us. Like for years and years and years and years, they knew that Diablo 2's talent system may be archaic, but it's something that everyone has always wanted to go back to. And of course, in Diablo 4, we've gone back to it. Of course, it's an updated version. It's less stupid, but it's keeping in all the strengths of the old system. So the old system, I think I went into a bit of detail about this before, but because you leveled up to 99, you had, and then certain quests would give you skill points, you had like 110 points or something total to put into any talents anywhere in any tree that you wanted to. And I think each class had 3 different trees. Like the Sorceress, for example, would have like a frost tree and then a fire tree, and then I think her 3rd tree was like arcane or something like that. Oh no, it was a lightning. So that same sort of talent system, at least a very heavy inspiration, has been given to Diablo 4, which is awesome because the Diablo 2 one just worked and nobody ever complained about it. But they changed it anyway for Diablo 3, and everyone complained about the Diablo 3 system. So yeah, so it's good on them for finally listening to us. Also, the Sorceress, the Druid, these characters that we haven't seen since Diablo 2, super exciting because the Sorceress. I mean, the magical variant for Diablo 3 was the Wizard, and the Wizard is it's just like the Crusader and the Paladin. So in Diablo 2 there was the Paladin, Diablo 3 there was the Crusader. They're both part of the same like branch of warrior, except the Crusader is like a basically like a dedicated tank sort of. No, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't specify it because I can't remember. But they're it's like a necromancer and a witch doctor. That's another one where they're both from the same vein. They've just branched out from each other.
Thematically, they're very similar.
Yes. It's the same with the sorceress and the wizard. Of course, the sorceress is just the wizard's about like arcane magics and stuff, and the sorceress is just pure elemental fury, and it's just it's really fun to play with the sorceress. The sorceress was my first level 99 in Diablo 2, because she was my first character and my first level 99 in Diablo 2, and she was just so fun to play. And the druid was also really cool because you could build the druid as an elemental like powerhouse. You can build him as a summoner of like animals and stuff. You can build him as a werewolf, which is awesome. But you can, just like in World of Warcraft, the druid has so many different specs in Diablo. It also has a werebear spec where you can become this like, just like a werewolf. It's like a humanoid bear man, and it's just awesome to play. You feel so powerful playing it. One thing I will say as a negative is I don't like the look of the druid like player character. He
looks a lot like a furbolg, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, but he's too wide, broad shouldered. Like I was tempted to say brawny, but I don't think he's super muscular. He's just super big, and I don't. The druid from Diablo 2 was just like a normal human dude. Like, he wasn't super big, he wasn't super small, because of course the druid can do both casting and summoning and also physical combat. So they should like be relatively well-rounded physically, in my opinion. I don't know. He's too big to me. But the barbarian, of course, looks right on point, and the sorceress as well. There's no problem there. But given that the sorceress is named the sorceress, not the sorcerer or whatever, I'm not sure if they said they're allowing different gender choices, but sorceress as a class name sort of denies males from being in there, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure
they might have just said sorceress for gender inclusion.
Yeah, it might just be syntax difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
a shared open world means no offline mode. How do you feel about that?
It's just the same with Diablo 3. Everyone hated it at first, and then they got used to it. And a lot of games do that nowadays, and nobody seems to be in an uproar anymore. I think the uproar first started because Diablo 3 was like the first game that did that. But since then, there's been hundreds of games that have done that, and nobody really cared. Because the thing is, maybe I'm a bad example, but I'm never not online. Like, even for some reason, if my internet's out, I can just wirelessly connect to my phone for internet. Like, I don't know. There's very like, the only times that I don't have internet is when I don't have power and I can't play anyway. So it's just weird to me that that would be a big deal at all. It's nice too, because then when you're playing, you can actually open your game up to the public or keep it private. So if you're playing privately, nobody can join your game. If you disconnect, you get kicked out. You just jump right back in, whatever. But if you're playing and you're like, well, you're playing in private world, and then at some point you're like, well, yeah, I want to play with people. You can just press a button and go public, and then people will just automatically join your game. It's awesome. It's like when you're playing in World of Warcraft, you queue for a dungeon, and then like 3 people drop, and then just magically 3 more people pop back in. It's the exact same thing. So
that's a good way of looking at it.
It doesn't bother me in the slightest, because obviously it turned out to work with Diablo 3. I like the fact that they also advertised that their campaign mode would be non-linear. Now, I'm not sure if that means it's going to be like a procedurally generated campaign, and I don't know even how that would work, or if it's more like there's like 8 different branching paths or something like that you can take. But it definitely offered through that a lot of replayability.
I wonder if they're going to follow the same model as the last few expansions of World of Warcraft, where you're able to start anywhere as long as your end, you kind of all converge at the same place at the end.
Yeah, that is actually interesting, because the way Diablo has always worked is there's technically an open world in the sense that all the regions that you explored are connected to each other, but every time you move from one region to another region, it usually requires a loading screen of some sort. So they're not actually connected to each other. Some are, but not. That's the minority, I would say. So basically what's happening here is, if it's an open world with 5 distinct regions, maybe each region has its own loading screen, but within that region it's probably pretty sizable, and obviously with mounted, that's another thing, is they announced that you can use mounts now to get around, and so if there's mounts to get around, these regions must be pretty gigantic.
Yeah, well, and that's what they said, right? They said they were pretty, like supercontinents and stuff. They're pretty massive. So that's great for like you said, replayability and explorability, and just adding legs to the game for sure. But I guess that kind of, to me, that brings up one of my principal beefs with this game. Is they're saying that it's being developed for PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Now, we don't have a release date for this game, which tells me that we're probably looking at, a year or so before we actually get it at the earliest. And what's coming out in holiday 2020, which is a year from today.
Right. PlayStation 5, obviously, but they always do that. The exact same thing happened with Diablo 3. They advertised it for PlayStation 3, and then it came out for PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4.
Okay. So maybe there's no beef here at all, but it seems strange that they would have announced it saying it was developed for PC, Xbox One, and PS4, when they should have maybe just said being developed for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Maybe be a little bit less direct about which model of Xbox and PlayStation.
But then people might think PlayStation 1.
I don't think anybody's going to think PlayStation 1.
You almost took me seriously there.
Well, I was thinking, I heard PlayStation 1, but my brain turned it into Xbox One. So I was going to say, well, they are developing it for Xbox One. Yeah.
But I definitely, I would say the huge turn on for me was the cinematic, and I haven't watched all of the videos yet from BlizzCon, so I might be missing out on a few things here and there. But at the same time, there hasn't been a huge amount of information yet. Just saying like, oh, these things are continuing from the previous Diablo game, and these things are new to Diablo, and just crowd reactions basically from that.
Right. But that cinematic though, man, that gave me chills like I haven't gotten since Varian popped up in Here's the Storm 2 BlizzCons ago. Varian, if you forget the timeline, that's immediately after Gul'dan turns him into a bunch of sparkly fell confetti, and like I just finished playing that, and then maybe a day or so later, I see Varian pop up in Here's the Storm cinematics, and I'm like, that kind of chills that start at the top of your head and just go all the way down your body, and I was like, I got that sensation when I watched this cinematic, and it was I've never felt that way about Diablo before.
Now, before we move on, you should, because I didn't feel this at all, and maybe it's because I've been playing the game for my entire life, but you did have a problem with the way the gameplay was portrayed?
Well, so it's probably quite unfair. The problem I have with it is probably quite unfair. You've mentioned before on this particular podcast that I'm an art snob, and it's got to be kind of one way, or it doesn't have to be one way, but there are some very very precise earmarks that kind of make something unplayable for me. And one of those is this isometric top-down kind of three-quarter angle that this game is played at, where the camera, I do not like that camera at all. Give me this game, give me any of the Diablo games in a action cam mode, and all of a sudden it becomes a lot more playable for me. Give it to me on a controller, a lot more playable again. On a keyboard with that, it bores me. I'll be honest, it bores me. I see these things kind of these hordes of demons and skeletons come running at me. I don't know, man. It just bores me. I want to like Diablo 4. I really want to like it because I really want to get into the really dark and gritty and it's an aesthetic that I am all about that. I love it very, very much. It felt like Diablo 3 for me all over again.
Okay. But what don't you like about the isometric view?
It's the same as if somebody were to ask you why you don't like a particular flavor of ice cream. It's just not my flavor. It doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't give me a dopamine hit. It doesn't, it just rubs me the wrong way.
Well, it's weird that you mentioned a dopamine hit, because I don't get a dopamine hit from it either. It's just a mechanic. It's just a viewpoint. I don't know. I don't have any problems with any viewpoints that I know of. So it's just strange to me. That's all.
Even like first person bothers me as well, unless I'm playing a shooter, like the Skyrim game, which I've sunk hundreds of hours into. But the first person mode bothers me. But it bothers me. It bothers me less than in third person mode, because your character animations are so jank that I'm just like, okay, back into first person mode.
So, in the case of something like Skyrim, does the first person mode bother you because it's like sickening, or is it just like annoying?
No, it bothers me from an art perspective. Yeah, it's annoying. I don't like having my weapons up in front of my face, or my shield, or my hands if they're carrying a spell or whatever. I find it annoying. But I don't find it annoying in Halo when you've got your weapons up in front of your face. I don't know why. The Elder Scrolls just feels unnatural.
You have confounded me.
Fable is third person. It's a hack slash, just like Diablo is. Not quite as brutal or bloody, or not as many hordes, but love that game. Can't get enough of it. Give me Diablo in the Fable engine, and you won't be able to shoehorn me back into WoW.
Right. Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Make up a letter, composing a letter to Blizzard right now.
So last but not least, we should be covering World of Warcraft Shadowlands, which of course is the newest expansion in the series. It was awesome. The cinematic.
I tell you,
whew.
I am more pumped for this one, I think, than I have been in quite some time. Battle for Azeroth got me all like Twitter-pated, because I'm a huge Jaina fanboy, and if Jaina were a real person, my wife should be worried. But she hasn't. She did pretty great. I kind of feel like my Jaina crush has kind of dropped off a little bit during this BFA expansion through no fault of her own. But I've also been a huge Sylvanas fan for quite some time. And this cinematic, man, just it touched me in all the right places, if you know what I mean. I'm like, if it hasn't been established already, I'm not a Sylvanas fan, merely on the basis of the fact that she's so popular. I want to rebel against the popularity. I see. So I don't.
I liked her in Legion, but even in Legion, the cinematic that had her in there, I'm like, hey, she was in there. But I still didn't like that she was in it. Like, it's weird to me. And then when Battle for Azeroth came out, it was this ancient elf versus this little kid, basically. And I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy of verses there. Like this ancient, extremely experienced elf versus a barely adult human. That it's just that in itself is like, well, she should win based on experience, but the guy sticks his hand in the air and gets a huge globe of light around him. So you're like, well, I mean.
He does have mass res,
Yeah, that was kind of damning for her, I think. But anyway, I lean neutral towards Sylvanas at the moment, and following the cinematic, obviously, which was extraordinary. At first, when I first saw the cinematic during BlizzCon, I was like, what the heck? Why is Sylvanas so strong? But following the Q&A panels and everything that they explained later on, I no longer think that. And so okay. I'm more okay with how strong she was in the cinematic.
Right. So before we kind of delve into very specifics, give me broad strokes. What was going through your mind? How did you feel kind of when the cinematic wrapped itself up? Were you satisfied? Were you intrigued? Were you like what was going through your head?
Okay, so do you remember, of course you remember, during Battle for Azeroth cinematic, there, like, the whole Sylvanas build-up where she knocks down that huge siege tower and then she becomes the Banshee Queen, and then she, like, cripples, like, 6 soldiers around her and becomes whole again, and you're like, oh my gosh.
And that gives me chills every time I watch it.
But the very next scene, you're like, how can Anduin top that? The second he chucks that sword into the ground and, like, reaches up to the sky, I'm like, oh my gosh, something's happening! And that made me, like, 10 times more chills down my spine. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing! Because I really, 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 I can't even put into words how much I like the purity that Anduin is. I really like how just infallibly pure he is. Like, he corruption heads his way at every corner, and he stays super stalwart.
He'll have none of it. Actually, that kind of lawful good or neutral good is something that I've heard a lot of the community rebel against. They actually don't like Anduin. They call him a wiener, in that he's always kind of conflicted, like emotional, and always trying to do the right thing, and they want to see a little bit more, I don't know, maybe edginess out of him. But I'm with you completely. I've been an Anduin fanboy since he was an 8-year-old king in Stormwind. Before we had Varian come back, I was like, hey, this is really cool, a kid king.
Now, don't get me wrong. Just on a side tangent here, I would say during Cataclysm. No, it wasn't Cataclysm. It was probably more like Pandaria. The things that that Anduin experienced throughout Pandaria, I thought that he would delve a little bit into Shadow Spec, as it were, and I thought that would be a really cool, like, little divergence from his normal character, but he never did. And at first I was disappointed, but now that he's held true to he's like Valen, but Valen is so ancient and old and wise anyway that you're like, well, of course he's good, like, stay on his path. Like,
and even Valen delves a little bit into Shadow, right? When you go back to Legion a little bit, and we see alternate Valen. It's not the Valen we know, but it's essentially the same person who kind of enacts revenge against the Legion for the death of Rakish, or whatever his name is, his son.
Yeah, that's true.
So we do see a little bit of the edge come out in Valen.
Yeah, and so. But he's still, like, he's so wise that even though he stays mostly good, you don't really question it. You're like, well, of course, he's set in his ways. But Anduin is such a young, impressionable character that it's many times more impressive that he stays true to his ways.
Well, and when you have an angry man like Gen Greymane as your right-hand person who just wants to slaughter everything.
Yeah. You know? That's a huge tell. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a good counterpoint. One with the other. One plays off, or not plays off the other, but they kind of exist to balance one another, I think.
Right. So
yeah.
The chills I felt from the Anduin experience of him just, whether it was a mass res or just like a circle of light or whatever, or prayer of healing, whatever you want to, whatever spell you want to fit that huge effort into, doesn't matter to me. It was a really, really, really cool, inspiring moment. And this moment in the Shadowlands trailer was not inspiring. It was just insane. And that was enough that it just... One thing that I do to really hype up for an expansion is I play off of other people's reactions. So I'm so glad that we live in an age where you can just go to YouTube and look up 100 different reactions of different people reacting to these trailers. So when I saw the trailer, I got chills across my entire body, and I was like, oh, and I was vibrating. But then 5 minutes afterward, I'm like, okay, well, let's you're trying to, your mind's constantly moving forward, trying to absorb the next new thing that they announce, that you sort of put your reaction that you just had on the back burners. So to reinvigorate my excitement for that cinematic, I just went and watched 6 or 7 different, just right before this continuation, I went back and I watched 6 or 7 different reactions, and all of them, the guy, even Asmongold, people who have been playing the game for years and years and years, and sort of were trying to predict what was going to happen when she had Bolvar down on his knees and had the shadow tendrils going around his helmet. They were trying to predict what was going to happen. Oh, is she going to wear the crown? What's happening here? Chat screaming Shadowlands and all these different things, and you're like, oh, what is it? How is this Shadowlands? And then when she goes to
wait. For anybody listening, we're going to spoil the hell out of this thing. So if you have a problem with that, go watch the cinematic now or come back in a week after you have. Okay, sorry.
We're not just going to spoil the cinematic. We're going to spoil everything that was revealed at BlizzCon.
Everything.
And possibly more, depending on what's come up since then. But yeah, so she grabs the helmet, and just the way she raises it, if you're not paying attention to her hands, you might think to yourself, oh, she's going to put it on. But the way she's holding the helmet, nobody would hold it that way to equip it. You can tell.
To be fair, it's just a simple rotation of the hand to get the fingers. Because what you're talking about is her fingers kind of wrap around the inside of the helmet.
Yeah.
Right around where the face guard goes, so that she's in prime position to just tear that thing apart. But it's just a simple flip of the hand and the fingers are out of there. I was somebody that thought she was putting that sucker on. I was like, Sylvanas as a Lich King? Ah! I thought it was going to be incredible.
Honestly, I didn't think she was going to put it on, but I didn't think she was going to break it. I was literally in total question town. I was like, what's going on? I was excited, but I was like, I don't know what's happening. Because, it didn't happen, and me and Daniel sort of talked about this beforehand, but I would have been so supremely disappointed if she had put the helmet on. We already had a Lich King expansion. I don't need a Lich Queen expansion. It would have been Episode 7 of Star Wars. It would have been just a rehash of something we've already had. It would have been different, but the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're right. It would have been difficult for that team to make it thematically different than Arthas was. Enough so that it would feel fresh and exciting. Right. Because, if we have another expansion where we're going back to Northrend, we're going to be questing through Grizzly Hills again and Borean Tundra, and you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Same stuff over and over.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. It was probably a good choice. But just for pure badassery, I wanted a Sylvanas Lich Queen. But who knows, with her kind of allying herself with the jailer, we might end up with a more badass Sylvanas than we thought. may end up not being villainous whatsoever. It's actually what I'm seeing now is that she's, everybody was like, how can she not be a villain with all of the death and stuff that she was conjuring, I guess, throughout the entire Battle for Azeroth expansion. How can she not be a villain, right? Burning down Teldrassil and all the horrible things, and raising, Derek Proudmoore against his will, and all kinds of like villainous things,
and killing heroes of the Horde. For example,
exactly, opening fire on her own Forsaken. Like, that's all stuff that only like a mad Hitler kind of person would have done. I guess Garrosh did the same thing. Either way.
But Garrosh was actually evil.
He was a bad guy. Yeah, and so they keep saying, Sylvanas isn't Garrosh. She's not a bad guy. And I just didn't believe them. Actually, honestly, I was pretty upset with the direction they were taking her. And I wanted her to be fantastic.
That's a really good point, because they did sorry if you can hear that. She did the developers specifically said that Sylvanas is not Garrosh. I completely forgot about that statement, but that's absolutely true. They did say that.
Yeah, they did, because people were crying, Garrosh 2.0, we've already played this expansion, blah, blah, blah. And in 8.2.5, we actually end up at the gates of Orgrimmar all over again, sieging Orgrimmar, and it's like, my goodness, is this seriously happening?
Yeah.
Although that did play out quite a bit differently. But
well, yeah. One thing I was thinking about, it's kind of past tense now, it doesn't really matter, but I was thinking about the concept that because Arthas the Lich King raised her back to life, she might have been incompatible with the helmet. Like, if she tried to put the crown on, it might not have... If Ner'zhul could have possessed her or something, because she's basically a product of the Lich King, right? I was trying to figure out, like, it doesn't even work with us. Like, if you took off the Lich King's crown and put it on some random undead that the Lich King just rose from the dead, would it do anything? I know a random undead doesn't have their faculties anymore, but Yeah, I don't know. That would have to be a story for Blizzard to tell us, because I really don't know enough about the mythos behind the Helm of Domination. I didn't know that it would break the world in half, but I didn't either. What the heck is that all about? Yeah. So one thing before we, sorry, Daniel, I just want to get this out. One thing that I noticed when she broke the helmet is, as she's breaking it, little tendrils are seeping away from it, and then she shatters it open, and like 1,000 go into the sky, and it shatters. And I just the way the tendrils are shown, they look like souls seeping out. And as far as my understanding of the lore of the crown is that only Ner'zhul was in there, but there could have been more. I don't know. Yeah. Again, I can't help you on that one. I'm not too sure. But okay, first of all, before I kind of get into my bit, how about that voice actress? Patty Mattson is I had to look her up because I wasn't sure who voiced Sylvanas, but my freaking gosh, the disdain and the sneer in her voice as she's walking up on Icecrown, it's just, wow, did she do such a tremendous job. I was like, yep, major, like standing O for this lady, because she really made me believe. Sylvanas always talks like, like she's superior to everybody else, but I mean, her history with Icecrown and, it's a whole nother level. And I think that this Patty Mattson just crushed it out of the park. And then right at the beginning of the cinematic, as soon as she kind of walks up on the throne where Bolvar is sitting, Bolvar kind of stands up and he's all like orange fire kind of blazing out his chest and out his eyes. Super badass. Like, oh, he looks incredible. And he picks up this hammer that, let's be honest, we know nothing about. We know nothing about this hammer, where he got it from, but it looks like a legendary weapon. So yeah, he just has some kind of history. He just magically had a weapon. Yeah, he just picks it up, and and as soon as he picks it up, he turns blue.
all of his orange, all the orange fire turns blue. So so I was kind of making the joke that he was switching specs. But
it did take him a few seconds to turn color.
I wonder if that has significance. If switching from orange to blue, had something to do with what that is, and I don't know if we'll find out.
Well, he's never gone blue before. Every other instance of him, he's been orange, right?
Wasn't he blue as he froze in that crystal at the end of Lich King? Wrath of the Lich King, when they're like, when he says, I must be forgotten, and he says, tell the world that Bolvar Fordragon, or that,
yeah, that's his name.
The Lich King died today, and Bolvar Fordragon died with him.
Right.
And as soon as he says that, like the crystal kind of forms around him, and I seem to remember the eyeballs coming out of the helmet are blue, but I could be wrong. I'm not positive. But yeah, holy moly. So I didn't know too much about Bolvar before this, and I admit I still don't. So I think you know a little bit more about his history, so maybe you're kind of more absorbed with his badassery or less surprised by it. But I'm like, this guy, after being seared and broken and probably not doing much exercise in the last 5 years, sitting on that throne, he can throw down.
Just to confirm, it's weird. He actually, I'm watching the cinematic, the Lich King cinematic again, and the jewel on the crown?
Yeah.
It turns orange when he equips it.
Okay.
And his eyes stay orange. So
if Bolvar could be said to have a class, I know hero characters don't necessarily have classes, but if he could be said to have a class, would he tend more toward a warrior than a paladin? Because we see that in a Charlemagne, right? Varian's sword. When Varian held it in his hand, the kind of soul or spark in the middle of it was red, but now that Anduin is carrying it, it's yellow.
Yeah, no, I would say unequivocally Bolvar is a warrior.
So Bolvar has no paladin-esque history in him.
I don't believe so.
So it could be something as simple as that. Arthas is originally paladin, eventually Death Knight.
Actually, I'm watching.
Called Death Knight?
Arthas?
Yeah. Is he the first Death Knight?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So that might have something to do with the color of the jewel. Sorry to keep cutting you off there.
No, but Bolvar. I'm now watching the Shadowlands cinematic, and his jewel is orange when he's orange.
But blue when he turns blue.
But blue when he turns blue, yeah. So that's a little odd. No, I'm not sure if that's important at all, but...
And after Sylvanas tears the helm off of him, he reverts back to orange.
Yeah.
But the gem stays blue.
That's right.
So, I mean, probably nothing. Probably just art. But I think it's interesting kind of tinfoil hatty stuff to maybe... delve into on a different episode, maybe.
But this is the World of Warcraft episode.
Well, I didn't prepare anything.
You weren't expecting these weird questions?
I wasn't, I'll be honest. I didn't think that you'd ask me about the jewel.
Well, I thought you knew everything about Warcraft.
I have never claimed.
So... Yeah, so Shadowlands. So the sky shatters into non-existence somehow. It's like the firmament breaking for flat earthers, man.
Yeah.
So it shatters upward, and what we see is it looks almost like a mirror image of the Icecrown Citadel. It's another tower emerging from darkness, upside down, above the Icecrown Citadel. Which, of course, at first we have no idea what that is. My first impression was that it's the Shadowland variant of Icecrown Citadel, and that the Shadowlands would be basically like a mirror image of Azeroth. That's what I thought it was. But obviously, they reveal later on that Shadowlands is a distinct region in itself. It has 5 different zones that are in no way geographically, no way similar to Azeroth, so you can't say specifically that it's a mirror image. It's a completely different area.
Yeah, and on that note, though, kind of to offer counterpoint, they talked about that one zone in the Shadowlands, the one that was kind of druidic in nature. I don't remember what it was called. Maldraxxus, maybe? No, that was like the vampiric one.
Ardenweald?
Yes, there you go, Ardenweald. So they actually said in the deep dive panel that one is it's kind of like if the Emerald Dream had gone sour, like if it had gotten corrupted,
right.
That's what Ardenweald would be. So it was like,
but not corrupted, death corrupted. At least the videos and character, or not characters, but like mobs and stuff that I saw in the preview, they didn't look deathy. They just looked different,
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Emerald Dream has been described as kind of the Titans' backup for Azeroth. If ever Azeroth needed to be wiped out, they had the Emerald Dream because that was the perfect version of Azeroth. So the fact that the developers have commented that this Ardenweald is like the Emerald Dream, just it had gone south instead, because we have the Nightmare, right, which is already kind of that. So I wonder how this all kind of fits in together.
Well, the Nightmare is. It's the Nightmare is the dream world, right? Except it's just corrupted.
I think so.
Like if you purify the Nightmare, it just becomes the dream again. That's my understanding.
I thought they were separate.
Okay, well, they could be. I don't. I'm not very versed in that area of things. I don't. A good example would be the. I'm blanking on the name. It's a raid in Legion of that big tree.
Come on.
when you're going through that raid instance, you get to a point where you meet Malfurion, and he's like, "Well, you got to go to these 4 different places to purify the dream, the Emerald Dream," and you're like, "Oh, okay." And when you go there, it's all corrupted with tendrils of madness, and you're like, "Oh, okay, well, interesting." When you defeat the boss, it doesn't purify on the spot because obviously that's not how World of Warcraft works. It's what you would call that. It's World of Warcraft is a very interesting world or game in that like it tries to like they pointed out that Horde basically while they're leveling up they experience like 6 different war chiefs essentially because World of Warcraft tries to like superimpose all the storylines on top of each other instead of statically moving forward. Like the second Thrall moves on from being war chief, they should have just taken him out of all of the quests, but they didn't. So it's sort of jarring to new players. Anyway, so when you defeat the bosses of these different wings, it doesn't purify anything on the spot, but it sort of seems it tries to imply that it's purifying the Nightmare. And I just thought that the Nightmare would just like physically stay the same, just become the dream again. Anyway, I'm not sure. That's just my assumption.
So now that we've got the Helm of Domination has been removed from Bolvar, it's been destroyed. First of all, what happens to Bolvar now? And secondly, what happens to Sylvanas? And lastly, what about King Taranis' comment that there must always be a Lich King? So let's start with the first question. What happens to Bolvar? Like, is he... Obviously, he's no longer the Lich King. He probably has no control over the undead in Northrend. Where does he go? What happens to him? Does he join the Alliance again?
I would say so. I would say he might become like Illidan was in Legion, where he becomes sort of a obviously Alliance favoring, but now neutral kind of denizen of the world, which kind of bothers me. Illidan makes sense that he's neutral because he was never like he was aligned with the elves, but once he moved on from that alignment, he became more aligned with Tyrande and then neutral overall because of his own. He had his own goals separate from everyone else. But with Bolvar, he was like he was Anduin's defender. champion for years and years and years until Varian came back. And when Varian came back, he was already the new Lich King. So it's now that Varian's gone again, even though Anduin has what's his face, Gen Greymane, as a mentor, a father figure, whatever you want to call him, I feel like Anduin knows Bolvar so well that it might be like even though Bolvar is horribly scarred now, it might be a nice reunion. Also, Bolvar has a daughter. That it's very important there as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think he would be Alliance, but we don't really have a Horde version of Bolvar to guide Horde players into Shadowlands. I feel like he might be a neutral character more than anything.
So I had always operated under the assumption that the Helm of Domination was keeping him alive. So we see at the Wrathgate that Bolvar gets kind of flattened by all of Professor Putris's, the cannonballs of death that he was raining down on everybody, and plague everywhere, and everybody's turning into undead and stuff like that. Death to the living and death to whatever, the Forsaken. Death. What does he say?
It's been years, man.
Death to Sylvanas and no.
Either
way, it doesn't really.
It's death to the living and death to something else.
Yeah. Either way, Bolvar fits that, and he was dying, sure as you can be, and then Alexstrasza comes in and breathes fire on him, and brings him back alive, which is really weird. But it kind of burned away the contagion and cauterized him. But every time you see Bolvar, in the game after that, he's very obviously in agony. He's hunched over, he's bent right over, and he actually even says that the dragon's fire has kept him has kept him alive. But at the time that he's saying that, he's sitting on the throne already, the throne in Icecrown Citadel, Arthas's throne, almost as though he's a prisoner there. Actually, I think he was a prisoner there.
He was, yes.
And he looks like he's 2 steps away from death, and that we save him by allowing him to have the crown. And now that that Helm of Domination has been removed from him, I always felt like he would die because he didn't have that kind of life supporting him.
Yeah, no, I never. Because he was strung up for who knows how long before the forces of the Alliance and the Horde came to save or to defeat Arthas. So I just assumed that he was fine. He was just in horrible shape. By the way, the Putris quote is "Death to the Scourge and death to the living."
Ah, that's right. Because the Scourge is Arthas's undead.
That's right.
Gotcha. All right. So what happens to Sylvanas now? She can't very well go back to leading the Horde, right? Because she pretty much burned that bridge when she said in the last cinematic, fully rendered thing that they produced, where she shouts, "The Horde are nothing. All of you are nothing." And then you get kind of that ugly side eye from that one Forsaken guard that looks at her like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And then after they carry Sourfang's body back into Orgrimmar, they just open the gates and let everybody walk right in. So, I mean, I don't think that would have been something Sylvanas was okay with, and I think everybody knows that Sylvanas would not have been okay with that. So I'm pretty sure she's just abdicated as the war chief.
For those interested, Daniel's talking about the Verak Saurfang's Mak'gora video. It takes place during the campaign in Battle for Azeroth.
And I actually just had the joy of playing through that today. That whole scenario is tons of fun.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, I mean, they sort of explained where Sylvanas is headed, but her ultimate goal, her ultimate end game, I have very little idea. I'm not sure if she is ever going to become an enemy boss of any kind, but she is definitely going down a very dark path. not necessarily an evil path, just like a hope. I was going to say a hopeless path. It's not hopeless for her. It's a hopeless in the sense that she's abandoning hope. She's abandoning all positivity as she like marches into the darkest area of Shadowlands. It's just it's. She's going to talk with the jailer apparently. The jailer is. I'm not sure if he's like the god of Shadowlands or just literally the jailer, the one who keeps the dead from maybe going back to the living. I don't know what that even means. How can you be a jailer of the dead? It's very weird to me. It could be a jailer of the Maw, specifically.
Yeah, that's it exactly. The jailer is inside the Maw, and one of the major rules they said is that the Maw, that zone, nobody ever leaves, and that's what makes you as a character unique. Is that you're called a Maw Walker, in that nobody ever leaves except for you. You are like the first person in history that's ever able to leave the Maw that we know of. But we can also be reasonably sure that when Sylvanas, when she threw herself from the top of Icecrown and committed suicide, that's where she went. Right. And there kind of struck a deal with the jailer, who then possibly let her out. But I believe that the jailer is, he's just kind of oversees the Maw.
Right. So one thing about Sylvanas that I don't know. I think I was watching a Noble video. Noble is, of course, a YouTube channel who does a lot of Warcraft lore stuff. He's bar none the best person to listen to for lore, in my opinion. He was talking about how when she plunged from Icecrown Citadel, hopefully to her, I can't remember which, was she trying to kill herself? She was doing some. Oh yeah, and then the Valkyr saved her.
She was trying to actually end her existence. She wasn't trying to get to Shadowlands. She wasn't trying to do anything beyond, because she had like the entire goal of her existence up until that point was to exact revenge on Arthas, and now Arthas is dead. She has no more raison d'être. She has no more reason to be alive.
Right. But one of the Noble videos I watched explained how. I want to say it was that moment, but it might have been a different moment in Sylvanas' undeath, that she accidentally crossed the border from life into the void. She didn't go to Shadowlands in this specific example I'm giving. She went into the void, and she was only in the void for a very, very short time. But whatever she experienced in the void was so horrifying that everything she's doing now for Shadowlands is to dodge that threat, whatever it was. She was so horrified by it that she's like, I have to do everything I can to either stay away from it or to defeat it. So off of that, my whole prediction for Sylvanas is she is pursuing as much power as humanly possible, so she can be the quote-unquote Illidan of maybe the expansion after Shadowlands or endgame Shadowlands to fight off the Void menace.
Yeah, I agree with you about the power thing, which is kind of, to go back a little bit about what when she broke the helm, she had kind of a, not really a throwaway line, but it probably was maybe lost in everything that was happening at the time. She says to Bolvar, she says, "You are not worthy to hold this much power." Right, as she's holding the helm, and I feel like Blizzard was kind of baiting us right there, because she's holding this helmet in her hands, and it looks like she's about to lift it onto her own head as she's saying that. So it kind of just reinforces that notion that Sylvanas herself considers herself to be worthy of holding that much power, but not Bolvar.
Right.
So I kind of agree with you. I think she is trying to garner a lot more power. Sylvanas's intentions up until this point have always been about the preservation of her race, right? How to get the Forsaken to, I shouldn't say always, since, because she hasn't been the Banshee Queen for really all that long. What was it, like 30 years ago she was a living night elf or high elf. So I mean, there's really not that much history of her as the Banshee Queen, but she is trying to make it so that the Forsaken can live on, right? So she's trying to enlist any method she can to perpetuate her race. I think that Sylvanas is actually trying to scrounge up enough power that she doesn't need to perpetuate the Forsaken any longer, that she can somehow flip a switch and bring them all back to life.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Again, that I hate watching videos or listening to podcasts where people talk about things that are so far beyond my understanding. So I just want to lay out a little bit of more groundwork of what I was talking about. The void is like this. It's not space. It's like a completely different realm. Daniel knows this better than me about the cosmology of Warcraft, but basically there's tiers of beings in the Warcraft universe. Like the Titans, for example, like Sargeras was a Titan. Azeroth itself, the planet, is a Titan. Different. I think it's a dormant Titan, but nonetheless, it's classified as a Titan. But
it's
then
an infant Titan that hasn't awoken yet.
Right. But then there's old gods, which there's a lot of old gods. Some of there's the what would you call them? The major old gods, the big ones.
Yeah. The 4 that we know of.
Right. But I think there's a lot others that they're just lesser.
So I don't remember where the source is, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But I do remember reading somewhere that there is, like you say, there's an infinite, not an infinite, but an unknown number of old gods, and only some of the oldest sources say that there are 5. In the last dozen years or so, everything has said that there's only 4. So that might mean something, that the one old god kind of got killed off, or maybe it's so good at hiding that nobody even knows about it anymore. So yeah.
Right.
Sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Right. So there's old gods, there's Titans, and then I believe, of course, this is where Daniel can correct me, but I believe above old gods and maybe of the same tier or above Titans are void lords.
Yes. So it's my understanding that if you were to try to put an old god and a Titan together, the Titan is more powerful than an old god, but an old god's corruption is so strong. It would be like me trying to fight a poisonous snake. Yes, I can kill a poisonous snake, but it might bite me and eventually I'll die because of it. Right. So a Titan would exist in a half tier above kind of the old gods. However, they would exist at least half a tier, maybe even more, below a Void Lord, is my understanding.
Right. So the Void Lords all presumably live in this realm called the Void. And so that's what I was referring to when Sylvanas apparently went there. There's Void Elves, and apparently Void Elves can just traverse the Void. I don't know how that works, but is that the same Void that they traverse?
Yeah. So Void magic is different from the location, though, that Sylvanas would have gone. Void magic exists in counterpart to light. Just like life exists in counterpart to death, void and light are kind of opposite ends of that spectrum on the cosmology chart.
I thought it was light and shadow. Is shadow the same as void then?
Shadow, that is a great question. I don't have the cosmology chart in front of me. I'd have to pull that up and look. But you can see kind of how they, if you just give me 1 minute here, forgive my key clicks, cosmology chart.
Listen to him pound those keys.
Okay, here we go. I'm pulling it up right now. I need a full-sized image.
I like this cosmology chart. Looks really cool.
It is really cool. Okay, so we have decay, undead, necromantic power. Okay, so death exists in counterpart to life.
Yeah.
And order and disorder. So we're talking about...
Are you leading into your screen right now?
I am, sorry. Did I get really loud?
You did, yeah.
So we have the Void Lords and the Old God existing in counterpart to the Naru and the Light.
Right. Okay. All right. The Naru is also kind of weird. Well, that's a story for another time, I think. So yeah, that became way longer of a story than I expected it to. But yeah, that's where my story, my prediction was going. So if she did see something in the void to scare her, it would make sense that it would scare her because the Void Lords are essentially like the greatest known threat. So yeah, I'm not sure if they would ever have any kind of what's that called? Any
in-game
kind of
presence.
Well, not just an in-game presence, but like if they have any feud with mortals. It's weird to me. But it's Blizzard. It's possible. So yeah, let's move on to the zones. Because we've barely moved on from the cinematic.
We're doing great.
Oh yeah, this might have to be like a 4-episode series. So the zones, there's 5 zones, right?
Yes.
There's one zone for each of the covenants, as I understand it, and then like a neutral ground. Oh no, the 5th one is the Maw.
That's right, and they said in the deep dive that there's 4 covenants. No, when they're talking about the Maw, they say there is no covenant. ... that we know of.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's something. There's got to be something there.
Okay, so there's 5 zones, and then there's also Oribos, the central city of the whole area.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be another Dalaran.
Right. So the 4 zones are Bastion, ruled by the Kyrian, which are they're like light, I guess. That's sort of their virtue is their.
It's a very paladin aesthetic.
Yeah. Then there's Maldraxxus, which is all about undeath and like survival of the fittest. It's not evil. It's just it's all about power and stuff like that. Then there's the Ardenweald. We already sort of talked about that. That's the dark version of the Emerald Dream, not the Nightmare though, which, like Daniel said, is kind of weird. But maybe they'll explain that further. And then Revendreth, which is that's like the coolest looking zone. It's like a gothic, Castlevania kind of zone. It's very weird.
It's essentially a creepy purgatory where you have to go to pay for your sins in life.
Even the premise is really cool because it's like, hey, if have you sinned, well, come over here and pay for your crimes. It's like a jail. That's like a lesser jail, I guess.
It's for the unrepentant souls.
Right.
Where they get chastised and turned back to the light, ?
Right. And then, of course, the 5th is the Maw, which is overseen by the jailer, which we know nothing about. But actually, let's zoom out a little bit here and talk about the Arbiter. And the Arbiter is the entity that basically sits at the dividing line between life and death. And every time any soul dies, it has to pass through the Arbiter, and the Arbiter decides where those souls go. And recently, something's happened where the Arbiter has stopped overseeing where souls go. And that's why they sort of explain in the opening ceremony how all souls that have been dying have been just going directly to the Maw, because the Arbiter isn't doing its job for some reason. So when the player ends up arriving in this case, it's Bastion. That was the only zone that was available on the floor of BlizzCon for demo playing. So in this case, when the players arrive in Bastion, of course, as far as we're aware, the players don't have to die to get to Shadowlands, but maybe they do. We don't really know the transition process yet. But when the player arrives in Bastion, all the NPCs are like, dude, we haven't seen a soul forever because it's been a long time. It's basically been at least since the beginning of Battle for Azeroth that they haven't seen a soul.
So let's pump the brakes real quick on that. I just want to add something. First of all, it's been a lot longer than just the Battle for Azeroth. I don't remember when he said, but it's been several expansions where the souls have not been going to any other place except the Maw. And the reason why this is a problem is because of Animus. Animus is kind of the currency that each of these characters in Afterlife have, and it's dependent on the life that you led before. Whether it was good or evil, the importance that you had on the world kind of dictated how much animus you had in the Shadowlands Afterlife. So you could go there with tons of animus, and it was essentially currency, and it was what their kind of lifeblood was to keep them moving. So what's happened now is, after years and years and years of having no animus coming to them, because like Jeff said, the Maw is what's sucking up all the souls at this point. No other zone is getting any afterlife fees. No infusion of animus from any other afterlife. So essentially what's happened is everyone is starving.
Right. I was going to correct you at the beginning, but it's funner this way. It's anima.
Oh,
there's no S at the
end. Okay, my bad. Should I re-say the whole thing?
No. I would never do that to you.
I know. If you'd have said yes, I'd have said no.
Yeah. So it's actually a really interesting premise. The four zones are ruled by certain groups that are called covenants. There's the Necrolord Covenant, the Night Fae Covenant, the Venthyr Covenant, and then the Kyrian Covenant. And the covenants are kind of a when you start the expansion, you choose a covenant to be a part of, and that covenant story basically becomes your story as you level up. Like in Battle for Azeroth, each zone has its individual story, but it all culminates into one ultimate story. It's sort of the same here, except for you're not going to experience any other covenant's storyline at all, unless you choose to switch covenants at some point. And they say you're going to be able to do that. It's just it's going to be kind of prohibitive to switch covenants. You're going to feel encouraged to choose one covenant and just stick with it. Right. Obviously, with alts and stuff, you can just go all crazy. That's another thing we'll get into, but alts are going to be a lot more encouraged for Shadowlands.
Mm-hmm.
So, Daniel, do you have any favor or disdain for any of the four covenants revealed so far?
Well, as a system, I'll talk about the system first, because I'm a little bit trepidatious about it, because we've had WoW make these kind of grand claims before in the past, and I've found that the community doesn't react to it well. In that there's things that you have to do, and you're punished for making a wrong choice or a bad choice, or maybe even you would have preferred to make a different choice, and you ended up not being in the optimal place, and then people complain about it, and then they rage on the forums and all that stuff, and then Blizzard caves and makes it. I'm thinking specifically about Azerite power, and how it not Azerite power, artifact power in Legion. How they had to keep making the system easier and easier and easier for your alts, despite the fact that at the beginning was very difficult. And they had, in the early iterations, they had said they hadn't alluded to speeding up the process at all. And then they started adding that patch after patch after patch to make it more alt friendly or switch friendly. Like to switch your Legion artifact powers around. So I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous that they're going to do the same thing. I want them to not. I want them to make this a difficult, even punishing system. Maybe punishing is the wrong word. It's not punishing, but once you've made a choice, you have to learn how to live with it.
Right, consequences.
That's right. I think that all of the powers that you're going to get associated with each of the covenants, they're all going to be fairly balanced. However, some are going to be more balanced toward, say, paladins, or others more balanced toward a healer, or others more balanced toward tanking. And so if you're a DPS who ends up with, talents that improve their survivability, that might not be your bag of tricks if you're like a raider, right? You're like, well, I don't need more stamina or whatever. I know I'm being really, really broad strokes here, but I'm just saying I'm a little nervous about what they're going to do. Now, that said, which covenant am I particularly leaning toward? I don't really have one. I expect I'm going to experience them all. And the reason is because I play on a PvE server, but I have headcanon for each of my characters. And not each of them, but the most important ones in my vision. So I like to kind of, I guess, play out a fantasy of that character and what that character, what decision, what choices that character would make. It takes me out of the picture completely, and it says, okay, what would Adalissa do in this case, right? And be like, okay, well, she's bitter at the world, so she'd make this choice, right? So I'm thinking the first two that I'm going to really delve into are the Venthyr and the Necrolords.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, the kind of the two that are a little bit more edgy.
Yeah,
I'm not all about that druidic life, so that one kind of doesn't interest me whatsoever.
I'm in the same boat as you.
And then the what's the one that's I just said the paladin aesthetic, Bastion. That again, I've never really played a paladin very much. And I didn't care too much for whatever the heck that Sky City was where all the warriors went to. It kind of has the same aesthetic as Bastion does. Back in Legion.
Yeah, I can't remember the name either, but it's like Valhalla.
Yeah.
But I would say I also have sort of headcanon for a lot of my characters. Some of them I obviously don't. I just don't care. But like my Death Knight, when I first made my Death Knight, he's existed since Wrath of the Lich King. It's been the same Death Knight. And with him, when I first made him, it was under the premise that he was a paladin in life. So, like, with him, I will definitely 100% go Bastion with my Death Knight. Because he's a Death Knight now, but he still reveres the light. He just can't. Or not necessarily can't, but he leads a different life now. But he would still like to serve good,
Oh yeah, that's great. He sees an opportunity to get back to his roots a little bit. That's cool. I like that.
So stuff like that. Yeah, I'm absolutely in the same boat as you. I think all of them, like you, I will also experience. I have no interest at all. Like the Ardenweald, the Night Fae, I will definitely experience that last. Revendreth, I have a feeling will easily be the most popular one, but I also I'm on board the hype train. I really want to see that as well, just for the aesthetic. It's not necessarily the story. The aesthetic is amazing.
It feels like a vampire castle, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Maldraxxus, I'm really interested in because this is the location where all of the Lich King's forces were called from. It's specifically not evil. So its forces were called from here to serve an evil lord, but these forces aren't originally evil forces. So that dynamic is really curious to me. So it would be really interesting to experience that storyline. They provided examples of really, really famous characters who died and arrived in different locations. Bastion, Uther ended up there, and we'll be seeing him as we go through the game.
Because of course he did.
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't he? Same with Cenarius for Ardenweald. That of course Cenarius ended up there. Cenarius is like the ultimate druidic character.
For sure.
Revendreth, that's where Kael Fass ended up, which is also awesome to me. I really like Kael Fass. Maldraxxus Draka, which is of course the mother of Thrall, that's where she ended up. I don't really know orc lore very much, but I guess Draka was just a badass. So.
Oh, she was. Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that got Durotan all hot below the collar because she was what book was it? I know I read the book. I feel like it was one by Knack. The Rise of the Horde, maybe, where it talks about the planet Draenor actually dying off, and we see Durotan kind of choosing Draka because she is a badass that can just beat up everybody. So yeah, no, she's a good choice.
Yeah. So also I'm just going down my list here, so it might seem a little disjointed, but moving on from the zones, focusing a little bit more on the covenants for just a second. One thing about the covenants is. Like Daniel said earlier, the Maw isn't a covenant; it's a zone. And as far as we know, that there isn't any covenants there, but there probably will be, just based on their leading dialogue. But the Maw is is going to be the end game zone. You have to be max level to get there. It's like a horrific prison. It's like. Where Shadowlands is the afterlife, the Maw is essentially hell. Like it's where all the souls are going right now, but its original purpose is the holding cell for the worst souls in all of existence. So basically, the jailer is so infamous because he's like the boogeyman. Nothing's known about him. But somehow he's managed to keep all of the worst souls to have ever existed from ever escaping. Like they don't even say that we know of. No one's ever escaped. They actually definitively say that no one's ever escaped, except for us players, because of course it would be a horrible disappointment if you got to level cap, entered the Maw, and then you just couldn't leave. You try to hearth, your Hearthstone breaks. You try to leave, it just doesn't work. You're like, what the heck?
So your flight master's whistle just melts in your hand.
Exactly. Yeah, it wouldn't make that much sense. So yeah, I sort of went into a little bit. Death itself is broken. Instead of going to the Arbiter, everything is going to the Maw. Which, like Daniel said, it's causing the other zones to be starved of anima, and the Shadowlands itself begins to wither. And then we sort of talked about it before. Sylvanas is starting to not starting. She's been doing this for a while, like causing a huge amount of death. For some reason, we don't know why. She seems to maybe be working with the jailer. Maybe we'll probably learn their relationship as the Shadowlands story starts to progress. And it's interesting that as the Maw gained more souls, Sylvanas' power increased with it. And that is why she is so formidable against Bolvar, for example, in the cinematic. I was angry at the cinematic at first because she was so outrageously strong, but then they told me that, oh, well, something about death and Sylvanas is linked together, and that's why she's so strong. The more people that die, the more souls that enter the Shadowlands, the stronger Sylvanas gets.
I wonder if Sylvanas the Banshee Queen is just an avatar, and that Sylvanas' soul is actually still trapped in the Maw. Dun dun dun.
It could be. I mean, it could be. It's entirely possible that when she died, her soul immediately went to the Maw, or wherever. It wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't assume Sylvanas in life was evil enough to go to the Maw. That doesn't make any sense. But when she died, it could be that her soul left her body for long enough that Arthas just grabbed a random soul to put back into the body. And that soul was malicious and everything, and that's why Sylvanas seems like a horrible, horrible character. And meanwhile, her actual soul is like, dude, and she's stuck in the afterlife or something.
You never really know. They did kind of describe the gameplay in the Maw, though, what it was going to look like, what it was going to feel like, right? They said that it was, like you said, it was kind of the end game zone for this expansion, or one of them anyways. And it is just, it's a place of just constant hostility. And, depending on how much time you spend in the Maw, you have like additional debuffs and things that happen to your character that make the game more and more difficult. So like aggro distances for all of the mobs get larger and larger, and whenever you die, you get a message that says the jailer has noticed you, or something like that, or the jailer is watching you, and then they slap another difficulty factor on top of you. So they say that it's the zone that that's the most hostile probably in the entire game ever.
Yes.
So the most difficult place. There's no nice friendly innkeeper that's going to sell you water and bread and cheese and stuff and give you
no mailboxes.
Yeah, nothing at all to recommend it beyond possibly like loot and stuff. I imagine there's going to be quests and like world quests and stuff in there, but yeah, it's probably not a place that a person's going to be able to spend hours and hours in.
Yeah, like Daniel said, it's the area literally wants to kill you. Whereas every other zone, there are enemies, but they're not enemies that from 200 yards away are marching towards you. That's sort of what I have in my head of the Maw, is you enter and neutral mobs around you become unfriendly, and you're like, ooh, I should stay away from these. And then maybe you kill one mob because you have to get around them, and it makes the jailer pay a little bit more attention to you, and because he's paying more attention to you, all the mobs around you are like, huh. And like Daniel said, the aggro range increases and increases and increases, and if you've killed enough dudes, basically everything in the zone starts chasing you. And that's why there are certain Covenant-related abilities granted to you that allow you to like avoid them as much as humanly possible to traverse the Maw. And where Covenants are like one of the major features of this expansion, the second major feature is at the center of the Maw. It's called Torghast. It's the Tower of the Damned, and it's basically this huge, endless dungeon that you can go in by yourself or with a full group of 5 people. It has just procedurally generated levels. The environment constantly changes. It's end game progression that does not rely on being in a group or a raid. Each time you do it, you can earn anima in different ways. Every time you reach a certain like tier of earned anima, you can like choose not a permanent, like a semi-permanent upgrade that'll like help you throughout the rest of your run in Torghast. So
it's a lot like the Hearthstone PvE stuff, except in WoW.
That's right, exactly. It's like the adventure mode in Hearthstone, when you can slowly make yourself super powerful. Except that in Torghast, your enemies also become like exponentially more powerful as you go. It's meant to have it's an endless haul in the sense that it does keep going. They said that they have no plans to make like an actual end level to Torghast, but the enemies become so difficult that you'll reach a point that you can't continue.
Actually, they said when they were making it that they did have to engineer an end to it. But they said that at that point the difficulty is so insanely high that if you get there, you're probably cheating. You've probably broken the game somehow.
Yeah, I just took that to mean that it's basically endless. If you can't get to the end.
Pretty well. No scrubs like you or I are going to be able to get there.
Oh, we'll see. No, I'm honestly, I'm really excited for it because my main drag in gaming, I hate chance. I really, really hate luck-based things. Even if it's like a 1% differential, I don't like that kind of thing. I also really, really, I've maybe it's because of World of Warcraft, but I really, really hate having to rely on other people to do well. Like if I'm in a 10-man raid, and I can do a boss as perfectly as I am capable of doing, and it's like, okay, if the other 9 people in my group performed as well as I just did, we would have easily killed this boss. But because of 3 or 4 people who were just, dicking around, we didn't down the boss, and now I'm wasting my time. That's the kind of thing that I'm like. I think it's been established before. I'm kind of a min-maxer. I'm kind of an inner elitist. I really like to do really, really well. I really like to push as hard as I can to win, and it feels really, really good to win. I like to smash my face against the wall a lot to get over each hump, kind of thing. So the concept of Torghast as this increasingly difficult challenge, it's like the training grounds that I think that was in Mists of Madeira. It was a solo experience that you could earn rewards as a tank, a healer, or a DPS as you went through it, and it was just this little single player experience in a huge multiplayer game that I was like, oh, sweet, I'm responsible for my own success. And so it's that kind of thing that I really like the idea of Torghast.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. However, I'm the opposite side of that coin. I do not like bashing my face against the same wall repeatedly. I want to fail at it once or twice, max. And if I haven't worked out, if I'm not real close to beating it by that point, I'll probably take a break and never come back to it. That's right. I'm looking at you, Mage Tower.
That thing haunts your dreams, doesn't it?
I didn't. Well, and I did try that one. I tried to get the. I don't know why I tried so hard, because it's a transmog for Warglaves, and I played Demon Hunters quite a lot, and I have my Warglaves transmogged out. I don't actually. Anytime I'm carrying a Warglaive, I have it transmogged into a sword or an axe. I don't actually like the look of the Warglaves very much.
What? Oh, yeah. Man!
No,
the one Warglaive it's like a fist weapon looking thing. Oh, it's so cool.
I don't care for them very much at all. They look sharp. I'm not going to get you. Don't get me wrong. They look sharp, but they don't look usable.
Well, of course not.
You know what I mean?
They're not at all realistic.
They look entirely impractical. Why would I go rushing through the air with these big chunks of steel on my hands? It doesn't make any sense.
We're about to dive into the sky at an upside-down tower.
And I'm arguing realism. Yeah.
I know.
Well, let's move on.
Just briefly, there's going to be 8 dungeons in addition to Torghast. As well as the first raid, I believe, being Castle Nathria, which is going to be located in Revendreth. And yeah, I said it before, it's basically like Castlevania. We're just marching against Dracula.
And it's a 10 boss excuse me, it's a 10 boss raid. It's got it's pretty beefy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, it's going to be like Karazhan, where you go in the front door and you're like, honey, I'm home, and you just do your thing, which is nice because I'm so. They made the joke about it, but it's true. I'm so sick of going through like the sewers or the back door, or some random,
trying to cheese your way into this thing. Yeah,
it's going to add to the pleasing aesthetic of the zone as well, as being able to go through the front door. Anyway. We also stopped talking about anima for some reason, but anima is going to be like a currency for us, the player. There's not going to be an artifact. They didn't talk about artifacts, but there's not going to be artifact power anymore. So you're not going to just endlessly farm and be punished as an alt, leveling up again and being like, oh, now I have to go through 50 levels of artifact power levels again. Instead, you're going to be able to farm anima, and anima is going to work like Valor did in, was it Wrath? I think they got rid of I think Valor Wrath was the last expansion that had Valor, the Valor points. And basically you had a set amount of Valor points that you could earn per week, which I think was like 1,200 Valor per week. It's going to work the same way. Every single character, alts included, will have a set amount of anima that they can earn each week, so that and a lot of different sources to earn the anima from. You won't have to just farm dungeons or just farm battlegrounds. You'll have like a billion different things you can do to farm this anima to your cap, and then once you reach that weekly cap, you can switch to an alt and do it again. And apparently it's not going to be overly time sensitive, or not time sensitive, time consuming to reach this cap. It's going to be like a realistic goal that you can attain each week. Now, what is the anima used for as a resource? I believe that's what's going to be used to craft our legendaries, right?
I honestly don't know. I think I missed this part.
So yeah, as you go through Torghast, for sure. I'm not sure about the anima part, so don't quote me on that. But as you go through Torghast, as you progress more and more and more, I believe you can do Torghast infinitely. As in, it's not like a mythic dungeon that you can only do once a day. It's going to be, you can go in there, get to the second level, and then fail, and then just pop out and pop back in and do it again. That's as far as I understood it. Maybe not, but nonetheless, as you progress through Torghast, you earn whether it be anima or reagents for crafting legendary items. The crafting system itself is kind of different now. Instead of just crafting an item and hoping for the stats you want, you can craft an item and then choose like one of 5 different preset stats that best suit you.
And I believe they talked about being able to add modifiers to your crafting spell, if you will. Like you're gonna have this item that you're trying to craft, but you have different optional things that you can add to it that are going to change, maybe change some of the stats on it, maybe change, I don't know, maybe the cosmetic appearance of it or whatever. But you're going to have a lot less RNG in your professions, and you're going to be, you're going to be back in the hot seat as the crafter. You're going to be back in the hot seat, able to actually control a lot more things. And one of the things that has got me so hyped about professions is they're bringing legendaries back to professions. Now, the only reason I'm hyped about this is because I made like 4 or 5 legendaries in Legion and sold them for some pretty obscene amounts of money. So the goblin in me can't wait to to get my greasy paws on some more cash.
Well, not just that, but also people from Wrath and Cataclysm will remember that, like, gloves and boots and pants and shoulders and helmets and chest pieces, shoulders, everything had sockets. So jewel crafters made $1 million or $1 million gold, and then only in the most recent expansions they've basically made sockets like a random chance roll for each piece of gear. So the amount of gems you have on your person at any given time has gone from like 15 gems down to like 2 or 3 gems. And so as a direct result, jewel crafting has really lost a lot of its value. So what they're going to do is, when you're crafting a set of armor or a specific piece, what you would do is you would use a crit gem or a haste gem to like force that modification onto the gear. So if you wanted crit gear, you use a crit gem, and then it would roll into crit stats.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say no to that. Like I said before, the Torghast crafting system, you'll be working your way towards legendaries, and the reason they're doing it this way is because legendaries from Legion were awesome. I don't think anyone ever disagreed, but nobody liked how they were obtained because they were a completely random drop, and you couldn't ever decide what you wanted. So some legendaries were obviously best in slot, like you unparalleled in utility or damage increase or whatever it may be. But other legendaries were like, hey, if you stand still for 5 seconds, you start to heal, and you're like, I'm not gonna ever stand still for 5 seconds. I'm a rogue or something, right? Some of them didn't make any sense. So if a random legendary dropped and you got one of these nonsensical ones, it was superior stats, but it didn't feel good to get it. So the Torghast system is to help combat that uselessness feel, that hopelessness. So as you craft your legendary, you can actually design the legendary for yourself. It's not just crafting a random legendary item, it's crafting a legendary item and then choosing what stats you want on that item. And maybe even ability changing stats like the Legion legendaries had.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's good. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
So, I did this summary with Daniel before we jumped into this, and then we just didn't do what we wanted to. So I'm just going to jump into it now. Let's talk about the level squish.
So this is super, super cool. This is probably the single best piece of news I've gotten for Old World of Warcraft in ever. So basically what has happened is they have completely revamped what is required of you as a leveling character to get from 1 to max level. Now I say 1 to max level, not 1 to 125 or 130, because they've actually implemented a level squish. They've brought us down from 1 to 120 down to max level in this expansion is going to be 60. So if you have any 120s right now, as soon as the expansion rolls over, they're going to be kicked down to level 50. Now, all of your damage is going to stay the same. All of your power is going to continue to feel the same. Just the little number beside your character is going to say 50 instead of 120. That's the only thing you're going to notice, as far as I understand.
Yeah, gear stays the same, everything.
But what is so incredibly interesting for me, for myself, is that 120 level wall was enormous, and despite the fact that you blitzed through those levels fairly quickly, like you could get a character from level 1 to level 120 in 30 hours of gameplay, if you knew what you were doing. 30, maybe 50 hours if you knew what you were doing. Now but the problem with that was that the levels became arbitrary. They didn't really matter anymore. There was nothing incredible about moving from 42 to 43 or from 51 to 52. It was just kind of like, ding, there you go, and go on your merry way. Nothing important happened. There were a couple of tiers along the way where you'd get a new talent, every 15 levels. But I mean, those were few and far between, and they didn't feel good to me. I don't know about your experience with that, Jefferson. What do you think the leveling rate felt like before?
I think Ian Hazacostas got it really, really well. It was too fast in the beginning. I would say 1 to 80, 1 to 90 is really, really fast. It's so fast that you can't even remember the last time you leveled because it was a few minutes ago kind of thing. It goes so quick.
They didn't mean anything.
Exactly. And like you said, talents every 15 levels makes sense when you level that fast. But if Classic has done anything for us, it's really made us feel like every level is huge. Because even though it's cookie cutter talent trees, it's still you feel purpose when you level up.
Yeah,
you're I can't wait to spend that talent point.
A new talent point every level, and every other level you get access to upgraded spells.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every 10 levels you get depending on your class or whatever, you get a class quest or something. It puts a lot of weight behind leveling up that, of course, we haven't had for the last many expansions. So yeah, I totally I'm on board with this.
Yeah. So they're saying that the leveling from 1 to 50 is going to actually be significantly in big block letters faster than the leveling from 1 to 20 is currently. So I'm okay with that too. I think that's really cool. And they're also bringing back that sense of reward at every level. I'm not sure if they committed to updating the talent system. I think that they did, but I'm not. I'm a little fuzzy on that.
I'm not sure.
But and here's the crux, the big massive thing. Level 1 to 10, you're in a starting zone. There's a new starting zone they're introducing as well for anybody who wants to experience that, but you don't have to. Gnomes can still go to...
New players have to.
Your first one has to.
As a new player, though. If you're not a new player, you don't have to ever.
That's right. Okay, yeah. So if you're a gnome, you can still go to Dunmorrow. If you're, a blood elf, you can still go to, I want to say Keldanas. It's not Keldanas. What the heck is that starting zone?
I like that you chose a zone you can't remember. It's not Ghostlands. It's
Sunlands. I don't know.
All right.
But you know what I mean. You can start there if you want to. If you got particular fondness to that, but you don't have to. You can start in that other starting zone, and then at level 10.
Whoa!
What?
You're missing out. Any level 1 character can choose any level 1 starting zone. If you're right? You can start in Northshire Abbey if you wanted to.
Nice. Oh, that's cool.
Because they said, especially in Classic, that players are being reminded of the journey from the Night Elf lands to the Dwarf lands. It's brutal.
It's terrible. Terrible. I actually timed my run from Menethil Harbor in the wetlands all the way to Dunmorrow, come on, not Karanos. Ironforge. How could I forget Ironforge?
Karanos.
It was 33 minutes, Jeff. It took me 33 minutes to make that run, and that's 2.5 zones. That's it.
Yep.
It's obscenely slow. So yeah, I think it's pretty sweet that we're going to be able to kind of change up our leveling process, and then the most important thing, Jeff. I keep getting sidelined here. The most important thing.
Wait, you're forgetting something.
No, I'm not. Shut up. Is the level 11 to 50.
10 to 50.
1 to 10 is a starting zone.
Yeah, but the transition level is 10.
Oh, okay. 10 gets to overlap a little bit. Okay, so let's say 10 to 50. You get to quest in any previous expansion zone from 10 to 50.
Of your choice.
Of your choice. You like Northrend, you get to go to Northrend at level 10, and you get to quest through Northrend, and you get to actually experience every single zone that you want to experience to its entirety. You don't out-level the quests anymore and have to move on to the next zone because your quests are all green or gray. You actually get to experience every zone in that continent, in that expansion, that you want to.
It's going to be like vanilla is now. Not vanilla, but the vanilla world. From level 1 to 60, you could experience, like, because the level of the mobs all retroactively level up with you. You can experience equal challenge through all the zones you go through from 1 to 60. But unlike vanilla, you're going to run out. You're going to get through 4 zones and then be 60 and move on to Burning Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
With the new system, 10 to 50 would be the usual, what you'd expect from classic vanilla of the amount of zones you'd get through, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm actually expecting. I think so. I think what you're saying is that you'd be able to, say you liked Burning Crusade the most and you wanted to do Burning Crusade, you would be able to do everything from Hellfire Peninsula all the way up to Shadow Moon, and then all the way out to Blade's Edge and Zanger Marsh and Nagrand and all of the zones.
What about the other one?
60. That's the one I can't remember. So I'm
Nether
just going to gloss over it.
It's my favorite one.
Is it? Nagrand is mine, but I digress. So I believe you'll be able to achieve 60 in that single expansion if you so choose. Is that the impression you got as well? You should be able to level all the way up to 60, or sorry,
no,
50. All the way up to 50 in that expansion zone, from 10 to 50.
Yes. More specifically, you can do, like Daniel said, you can do any zone, but also, if you want to just jump back and forth like you do now, you can.
Yeah.
You're not restricted to an expansion area once you choose it. You can just do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's just saying that if you choose one specific expansion, you will get all the way through all of your pre-expansion levels. Also, Daniel, you said significantly faster. Do you actually know the number?
No, I don't think that they actually said the number, did they?
They did.
Okay.
Lay it on me. It's 60 to 70% faster. 60
to 70% faster than current?
Yes.
Jeez. So in my previous estimation, 30 to 50 hours, we're talking like probably 10 to 15 hours?
Probably.
Holy smokes. That is fast. So they are going to have to give us new talents if they want every level to feel like that. Right.
And just to reiterate, only so Exile's Reach is the new starting zone. You can choose to do it if you want, if you're a current player, but you don't have to. New players have to choose it for their first time. Every following alt, they can choose whatever they want. But the very first character that they choose, they have to do Exile's Reach. It's an uncharted island. It's sort of meant as a tutorial zone because you meet like a wide range of different like environments. You get to meet harpies and quillbore and ogres, all these different types of enemies, dragons even potentially, and it's just a tutorial area, and then you can go anywhere you want. No big deal. I'm actually very interested in actually playing that zone. It should be a lot of fun. Also, they're making the two hero classes, Death Knight and Demon Hunter. They're reducing their like right now they started like Demon Hunter or Death Knight starts at level 55. Demon Hunter starts at like 98, I think.
I think so.
So
yeah, sounds right.
Now their starting zones, their individual starting zones, are going to be scaled to the level 1 to 10 range, and then they have to go through the 10 to 50 process as well. But like I said, it's going to be so much faster. It's not going to be that big of a difference.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. I think personally, you can't become because this is an RPG. The whole point of level 1 to 60 is learning your character as you go. So by the time you reach max level, you're a master of your class. Yes. That's my opinion. So the fact that Death Knights and Demon Hunters start so far later is an anticipation that you're already a veteran player, perhaps. But maybe because they're hero classes, they just wanted them to feel more powerful, like out the gate kind of thing. I don't know. It just, I was okay with the Death Knight being at 55, but the Demon Hunter being at 98 felt super forced to me, and I would have preferred it if they started at like, I don't know, whatever, like 70, because that was Burning Crusade or something like that. But they didn't.
Yeah.
And it annoyed me a little bit, but I like the change.
That would have made more narrative sense too if they'd have started at 70.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
But like Daniel said, character power doesn't change. You still be able to solo old content, old raids. Everything stays the same. Just that level number changes. That's it. The only actual change.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
We did it, Jeff.
No, we're not done yet. Get out of here.
Oh. What did we miss?
What?
What did we miss?
We.
The only thing we've missed on my list is the class abilities coming back. Certain class abilities that were pruned before, like Paladin Auras and Shaman Totems.
Yeah, I auras, curses, poisons.
Eyes of the Beast. Oh yeah, poisons.
Yeah. Totems as well.
Yep.
I can't wait. Totems are awesome. Totems are the best class ability ever.
Totems are the major reason why I don't like Shaman.
Oh, well, you suck. You don't like Shaman anyway. Allied races start at level 10 as well. They currently in current WoW start at level 20, which is a negligible advance, but whatever. Yeah, I guess maybe we did cover it all. I'm just going through this real quickly. Alts, let's just cover alts a little bit. Alts aren't going to be punished at all, it feels like so far. Obviously, you're going to have to level them up normally, but once you reach level 60 with your main character, all alts will have access to world quests. Doesn't matter what the level they are.
And not only world quests, but you'll actually be able to start earning. You'll be able to start earning reputation and power with your covenant. You get to choose your end game covenant right away, and you get to start working on end game content while you're leveling up.
Right. And if you, I believe the way they explained it, correct me if I'm wrong, if you can remember, but if you choose with an alt the same covenant as your main, you basically get grandfathered into that covenant. That you get an even more significant advantage in catching up to your main for rep and everything like that.
I'm not going to say you're wrong because I don't know, but that does sound a little powerful.
Yeah, but I'm not shying away from. I'm an alcoholic myself. Even in classic, I have like 9 characters running at the same time. So it's something I'm really excited for, except for the fact that I'm already 15 years into playing this game, and all of my characters are max level. So I have allied races that I'm trying to level up to get their heritage armor, but they're duplicate classes. They're not classes that I need at level cap. So it feels excessive to me. It's going to be nice to be able to experience this new leveling system, but they're trying to encourage more leveling of alts, and all my alts are level capped. Well, not right now, because BFA was sort of a
little bit of a throwaway expansion for yourself.
So I have 2 characters at max level, which is an all-time low for me. If you want to go back to Wrath of the Lich King, I had 10 characters at max level. Cataclysm, same thing. Mist, same thing. Legion, I got 6 or 7 characters to max level. And yeah, in Legion it wasn't because of lack of interest. It's because of the artifact weapons. I was so focused on getting my weapon as high as possible that I didn't have time for my ults. So yeah, I'm both excited and not excited for the leveling, the new leveling scheme, because I won't be able to enjoy it. I won't be able to, unless I force myself to make a brand new character, kind of thing.
I'll definitely. I think I'll probably. Well, that's. Oh yeah, you said you got a ton that are at max level. I have a ton that are on the way, and they only made it so far. I kind of have these sticking points at the beginning of every 10th. So somewhere around level 10, maybe 11, 12, I usually lose interest. But if I don't, then somewhere around 20, 25, I'll lose interest. And if I don't, somewhere around, you know what I mean? Every 10 levels or so, I have this sticking point where I'll kind of lose interest in the character. I've got a warlock that's level 50 something. I've got, a paladin that's level 40 something. So I have several that are kind of in transit. and they'll kind of be appropriately scaled down in level when the change rolls over. So I'm interested in playing those and seeing, how they've changed, how they change things. I don't think that there's any major plans to change classes up very much. They never really said anything about that.
No, I don't think so.
So I hope you like the way your class plays, because it's probably going to play the same for a little while.
Yeah, I'm actually I at least for Battle for Azeroth, I maxed out the Druid first because I wanted to have a hybrid class, and Druid wasn't very powerful this expansion, so I switched to Death Knight, and Death Knight is phenomenal. I've never not enjoyed the Death Knight, but right now the Death Knight's just super strong. So it just feels really good to play.
Is that right?
But one thing we did forget are soul binds.
Yes. So that was one I never really paid too much attention to, so you're going to have to educate me on this one.
Okay, so soul binds are part of the covenant that you choose to join. It's a max level thing. What you'll be able to do is bind your soul to one of several very powerful beings, and as such gain power. So examples they gave were like Theotar, the Mad Duke. He grants arrogance. You have a 5% increased critical strike chance against targets whose health percentage are lower than yours. That's one soulbind ability. Another example is Najia, the Mistblade, grants deflecting flourish. Your parry is increased by 6%. If you're normally unable to parry, she'll teach you how to parry, which I think is a really neat little thing. But soulbinds are basically talent trees in themselves. They have conduits, like gem slots almost, that are gained during your adventures through the Shadowlands. You basically choose the soulbind that best suits you. You can switch soulbinds when strategy demands. There's a backstory, a lore behind each and every soulbind. It's easy to switch them like talents. You just pop a tome and boom, you can switch soulbinds on the fly. What else about soulbinds? You have to go to your Covenant Sanctum to interact with your soulbind. You spend anima to improve your relationship with the Covenant and improve your soulbind power. It's basically they're looking at the Heart of Azeroth system and learning lessons from it, because obviously,
right.
In my opinion, definitely the Legion artifact system, my favorite of all expansion specific systems. The Legion artifact system is easily my favorite, and for me, they took a massive back step when they introduced the Heart of Azeroth. So hopefully Soulbind is at least a comfortable in between of those two systems, maybe.
Yeah, let's hope so. I mean, they said that they were going to learn. I do remember this now that you mention it. They did say that they were trying to learn, take the lessons they learned from both systems and try and mash them up into, the super system. And to me, it does sound a lot like the Legion artifact system. Just instead of applying it to a weapon, you apply it to, a relationship with a person or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So, I'm having a...
What, do you have anything to say?
I am all wrapped up, man. It's getting late, and I am tired, and I am so super glad that we didn't tack this on, or that we didn't record both of these episodes in one sitting, because holy smokes, it would be 1:00 in the morning if that were the case.
So that wraps us up. That was a huge episode today. This was stretched out over 2 different days to cover it all. BlizzCon this year was remarkable. It really revitalized my faith in Blizzard. No complaints.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't even really cover the J. Allen Brack thing when he kind of came out at opening ceremony and he talked about the situation with Blitzchung and how they bungled that and handled it poorly. We could have spent another 20 minutes, half an hour, talking about that. And for the sake of brevity, which I don't know how brief we were in the end, we kind of just glossed over that. But I agree with you. Like, probably the best BlizzCon in forever, and I'm so super glad that I bought the ticket, because man, oh man, is there a lot of like esports stuff I still got to go and watch.
Yeah. Again, I think if you haven't got the ticket yet, you still can. I think it remains available for at least 2 weeks after the event, and then once you have it, you have access to the live stream for like 2 or 3 months. Like, it's a fair view.
It's until May, I believe, so you got it for quite a while.
There you go. Yeah. So, and then after that, I think they actually just publicly upload it to their YouTube channel. So it's always available if you have the ticket, essentially. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. It was fun, very fun to rehash all of it, and it's going forward. We went into a lot of World of Warcraft lore, but it's World of Warcraft lore that pertains to this expansion specifically. We joked about it a lot already. When the World of Warcraft episode for our podcast eventually comes around, it's going to be insanity. I don't know how we're going to do it. Because 2 hours, it felt like we got everything covered, but it felt like I barely got into it, basically. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, we did a lot of just reporting what was coming rather than, kind of our opinions on it. We could have gone a lot deeper in that for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing a lot because of that.
Oh.
What I will mention, I laughed about this at the beginning of the first part of the episode. I was watching a stream because everybody was asking where Uther was. I was watching a stream of the demo experience on the game floor, of somebody playing through the Bastion area, and everybody in his chat was asking where Uther was, and of course, I have no idea where Uther was, but in the Bastion area, there's these little owl NPCs that walk around, and they're very cutesy looking owls. They're very, very, like, very owly. It's cartoony and everything. And somebody in the chat called one of the owls Uther the Owl Bringer, and I was like, "Yep, that's canon now. I need to see an owl in there called Uther the Owl Bringer."
That's perfect. They look like a moonkin put on top of a gnome skeleton.
Yeah, they're little short guys, but they're some carrying scrolls around, some scrubbing the floor. You're like, what a horrible afterlife for these owls.
What did they do?
Yeah. But yeah, it looks very promising, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I am with you every step of the way.
So without further adu, you can of course like, subscribe, favorite, share this video with whoever you want, everyone that you can. You can contact us through Twitter at podcast TLDR. That's podcast without the T, TLDR. Email is tldrpodcast@gmail.com. And it is, of course, through YouTube, youtube.com/TLDR podcast. Without further ado, I'll see you next time.
See you later.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, it's Jeff, and I just wanted to let you know that the following content is stuff that we recorded after an episode, but remains relevant to the episode itself. So, following this coming segment is still outtakes. So, there'll be a 2-second gap between this next bit and the outtakes, and then we'll be good. I just wanted to include this because, of course, it's relevant. It was just me and Daniel talking after our first session because, of course, this episode took 2 sessions to record. Thanks.
What do you think? I don't understand why, when Sylvanas tore the Helm of Domination apart, why the sky shattered. like maybe that'll get explained to us a little bit. But why is Icecrown Citadel, where the realms are so close? Do you know what I mean? Why is it right there? I just don't get it. And
I thought it was just literally just because of proximity to the destruction of the helmet.
Oh, well, maybe. So, second question then, follow-up question. Why did the Helm of Domination act as a catalyst keeping them separate?
Well, I know Frostmourne held all the souls, but when she shattered that helmet, it looked like a billion souls flew out from that too. I don't know what that meant, but that's what it looked like to me. So I couldn't tell you.
Well, and some souls were in the helmet, right? Ner'zhul was in the helmet.
Yeah, but that was it, wasn't it?
Was it?
As far as I'm aware.
Where did the helmet come from before then?
There's some blacksmith in the Icecrown Citadel. Wasn't he the guy who made the armor and the sword? And he made the hammer for Bolvar?
Yeah, and that's the other question too, is where did Bolvar get the hammer? That hammer looks a lot like one of the Death Knight two-handed weapons. It looks almost exactly like the I want to call it the Maw of the Damned, with a big question mark on it, because I think it mind you, maybe it's just because there's a massive skull on it. Who knows? I'm tired at this point. But it reminded me a lot of one of the Death Knight Legion artifact weapons.
The only thing in that cinematic that truly confused me was, and it didn't confuse me in the moment, it confused me afterward, was when Bolvar was sitting on his throne and Sylvanas walked up, and then he stood up, and then he grabbed his hammer, and then he turned blue. I thought
in my notes,
I thought that was a cool graphic, but then afterward, Ian was like, I guess that's why he turns blue. I'm like, what? What does that mean?
He's switching specs. That's what I wrote in my notes. Is he switching specs?
Is that what Ian meant?
Then, no, I don't know. I didn't hear Ian mention that.
He made a joke about that. That's why he switched from red to blue. And I was like, what? Oh, that meant something?
But then after the helmet comes off, he turns back to orange.
Well, yeah, that's his natural color. His now natural color.
Mm-hmm. So was the helm keeping him alive?
What?
Was the Helm of Domination keeping him alive? Because when we see at the end of Wrath, we see that cinematic where Arthas dies and you hold a grim fate in your hands, Tyrion. You know that. Bolvar, what is he doing? He's sitting on the throne, but he's like bent over near death, right? He's like his insides are obviously molten fire, right? He appears to be in great pain, and similar to what I always understood, anyways, is similar to what the heck is his name? Darth Vader, when they put the mask on him, that suit, while making him extremely powerful, was also keeping him alive. It was like his life support. And I felt very similar about Bolvar and the Helm of Domination.
But Bolvar was like chained up by the wrists during the whole Arthas fight, the boss fight at the end of Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah. And
then he comes down, and then he's like, ugh, I guess I'll do it. And then he's not dead yet. He lost the crown, but he's still alive.
Yeah, I know. I know he's still alive. And actually, in one of the panels, the day 2 panels, they
talk about how he's actually integral to the game as well.
Yeah. So cool. Bolvar's a pretty badass character.
I think I don't know what my I think my number one question for as superfluous as it sounds, I think my number one question for Shadowlands is, how do Death Knights keep being created? If everyone can be Death Knights now, who's creating them?
Mm-hmm. Especially if the Helm of Domination... Well, the Helm of Domination and Frostmourne, right? Frostmourne was shattered, and then some of the pieces were collected and made into the Frost Death Knight Legion artifact weapons.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, how do they keep making new Death Knights? We know that Sylvanas can raise people from the dead. Maybe she is. Maybe she's destined to be the new Lich Queen. Just doesn't need the helmet for it.
I don't know what she's planning. Because I think I watched, what's his name? That lore guy for Warcraft on YouTube.
Noble. Yeah.
I watched a video with him, and he was talking about how at some point in the past, Sylvanas, I forget when. Oh, it's when she jumped off of Icecrown.
Right.
He said that when she jumped off of Icecrown, that was her first interaction with the jailer.
Okay.
Like whatever happened right before she came back to life. She was talking with the jailer then, and since then, her every action ever has been based around getting back to him, or something like that. So, I don't even know what that means in terms of her ultimate goal, because she and the developers were talking about it too. How she burned Teldrassil. Maybe there's a purpose behind that.
Yeah,
maybe
trying
it requires
to cause the maximum amount of. So maybe she's trying to build up a massive backlog of animus in the Maw.
Could
maybe
but
the jailer and her are working together. Well, we know that her and the jailer are working together, but maybe he requires from her, a ton of animus.
Do we know the time frame between the burning of Teldrassil up to the shattering of the crown?
I don't think so.
Like, would it be realistic to say, like, it's been 6 months, or has it been, 6 years? And no, it's not 6 years, but...
Yeah. No, I would... As expansions go, I would say it's probably about 2 years.
So, lore-wise...
We're not recording. You don't have to be quiet. Sorry, say that again?
Lore-wise, not actual time-wise.
Right, and I know what you meant.
But, all I'm saying is, maybe if she had not burnt Teldrassil, if she had not destroyed Lordaeron, and then tried to shatter the helmet, maybe nothing would have happened. Maybe she required a lot of souls to build up, and then shatter the helmet, and then that just culminated in the breaking of the sky.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm loving the look of this expansion more, I think, than I've liked any of them since Wrath.
You say that about all of the expansions.
I don't think I do.
Every time a new one comes out, you're like, Jeff, this looks...
I salivate so badly I can't speak anymore.
That's right.
Tingling Leroy dances.
No. Something...
Dancing rigatoni. Sorry.
Something Leroy don't rage. But I don't know what the T would be.
Twinkle.
No. I just gotta pull up this other thing that oh yeah, I forgot about this thing. Okay. I'm ready to go.
What?
I know, I'll share it during the episode. Okay, sorry. I totally forgot that I had this on my computer. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you were waiting for me to say something. I was letting the uncomfortable silence stretch on.
Oh.
Oh man, I had a ton of fun. That was great.
All right, so thank you everyone for listening. I think I'm just gonna stop. All right, let me restart that. With shut up. I don't know how to say goodbye. Without further ado, see you later. Shut up! Ah! I'll do it again.